Oh yeah, we're also gonna do 1.25 speed. And we're gonna chill now. Oh, this is fine. I'll probably have to stop sometime. I don't know what the topic is about. It just says the truth about MMO content creators. I don't know what that means. It is it's a clickbaity title, you know, because you don't know what that means, but you kind of want to know, right? What is the truth? Tell me the truth. Police, I need to know the truth right now.
The MMORPG genre has millions of players across multiple games, from major studio releases to the more niche markets. And yet, as a genre, it has relatively
Could be a little bit louder.
few content creators. There are a handful of general MMO channels covering the genre as a whole, several video essay channels who touch on MMOs from time to time, and then specialized channels who focus on a specific game. But when you compare the MMORPG content creator roster to larger genres like first-person shooters or battle royales, even individual games like Minecraft or League of Legends, we are relatively small. The truth is, I want more people to start making MMO content, but there are some harsh truths you should know before starting. So why aren't there more general MMO content creators? Why aren't new up-and-coming YouTubers flooding into this market? And what's affecting the quality and quantity of the content that the current content creators can put out?
My guess is time. Because a League of Legends game is 40 minutes. And I can make maybe some fun highlights. I can play with friends. Minecraft, same thing, right? Friends, fun. It's also, I think, a very, I wouldn't say less heavy on your hardware. But yeah, in general, I think the problem with MMOs, because it's such a small market, it's a very hardcore players, right? MMOs are usually, I think, hardcore players. So anything you make needs to be of very high quality, I think. Otherwise, you just not get the views or get hate and just get spammed, whatever. And at the end of the day, MMOs just take a long freaking time to play, as well as you need some huge knowledge. I'm guessing. This is just my 2 cents, you know. I gotta react and add content, you know. I'm trying here, okay? I'm trying.
Let's find out. Welcome, I'm Josh Strife Hayes, and in this video I'm going to pull back the curtain on MMORPG content creation full expose style. I'll be talking to several other MMO content creators about their process and the challenges they face. If you've ever watched any MMO content creator, either general genre focused or game specific, and thought, oh, why do all these guys suck? We need better creators. Then this video is for you, because put simply, we want more people to make MMO content, but we also need to be honest with you about what you're getting yourself into. This isn't me complaining about my job. I think I have the best job in the world, and I'm privileged to be able to create content on a genre I love so much. This video is simply a look at the reality of the challenges you will face creating content within the MMO arena. For this video, I reached out to and interviewed several other YouTubers who cover general MMO content, several who specialize in one specific MMO game, and several general entertainment channels whose work includes MMOs. These channels include Asmongold, Kira TV, The Lazy Peon, MMO Byte, Work to Game, Ginger Prime, Callum Upton, Zeppler, Brozeme, Wicked Wiz, Many Kudos, Rage Darling, The Mighty Teapot, and Nerd Slayer. I sat down and spoke to each of these creators at length about 7 specific issues I feel MMO content creators face. 1. The actual audience size.
Of these people,
Many Kudos, Rage Darling, The Mighty Teapot, and Nerd Slayer.
Of these people, I have watched. Well, in general, I have watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Actively for a longer time, 1 of them. It somehow one channel resurfaced recently, which I have now subscribed to and now watch regularly. And another one I just literally found 3 of them I think I found like 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. So I'm clearly not in the MMO market, you know what I mean? Like, that's not the type of genre I watch on YouTube, let us say that, just in general, just FYI.
I sat down and spoke to each of these creators at length about 7 specific issues I feel MMO content creators face. 1. The actual audience size of the MMO market in relation to the general gaming world. 2. The toxic response of extreme fans to critique of their game. 3. The risks of being a general genre channel versus specializing into a single game. 4. The sheer amount of time it takes to finish an MMORPG. 5. The time-sensitive nature of MMOs pushing creators to make repetitive videos or focus on speed over depth. 6. The viability of first impression videos and why the genre is strange in its celebrated design trope of endgame and 7, the difference in playing to critique and playing to enjoy. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to include
The last one is such a huge point. I don't think I can go back to it. Yeah, the difference in playing to critique and playing to enjoy. That is such an interesting thing, which I've never fully realized. Because the videos I usually made in the recent ahoy there, how's it going? It's Kataton office. I say office, let's say Kataton. How are you doing? What's going on right now? I'm becoming a just chatting reaction stream. No, I'm kidding. Generally today would be Path of Exile. We talked about Path of Exile, but because I'm not gonna play more Path of Exile because the league is, starting soon. We just talked a little bit about the changes. Looked at some lore videos. Found literally barely anything about Kalandra because it's the biggest goddamn mystery after Chaos Orbs. And now, Josh Strive Hayes 4 or 5 days ago made a video about the truth about MMO content creators. I haven't watched it on purpose because I wanted to react to it. Also, I really just love Josh Strive Hayes. Not a homo. Okay, maybe a little bit. Anyways, yeah, we'll see. We'll see more about that. Yeah, in a week. Anyways, the difference in playing to critique and playing to enjoy. I have recorded 25 hours of a video game right now that I want to make a video of. It's going to be a very different video that I usually make. And I realize how I'm playing the game kind of to show the game off instead of how I would maybe partially to enjoy the game. So the last point hits quite home. It is a very interesting question that he's gonna... I don't know what exactly but we'll probably hear the question anyways later again. But yeah, it's definitely interesting because do you actually play the game to critique or are you playing the game to enjoy? There is a little difference, and I do feel it in the video in the game I play right now, which I'm not gonna spoil it because watch the video when it comes out, please, for the love of God. Which is probably gonna be in 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know yet. Like I really don't know when it's coming out. I need to make my league review, by the way. That's important first. Anyways, let's continue.
And 7, the difference in playing to critique
also
and playing
snackies.
to enjoy. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to include the complete interview with every creator, because doing that would make this video over 7 hours long, so I've had to edit them down to succinct answers. No one has been edited to appear out of context, or to provide a false narrative away from their true feelings. The lazy peon was unable to talk via audio, but he did provide a complete list of answers to me, so those will be read in. Because of the need to be thorough and give each creator time to explain their position, this needed to be a long video, so grab a drink and settle in, as we discuss the truth behind MMO content creators. The first issue is the total size of the audience actually consuming MMO content. Let's start simple. Why don't the mainstream gaming news have detailed coverage on MMORPGs? While you might get the occasional review on Final Fantasy XIV and its massive multi-million-pound expansions, or the cinematic trailers for The Elder Scrolls Online, you won't find PC Gamer discussing the monthly RuneScape patch notes, or print newspaper articles about the nerfs and buffs of Neverwinter. As an MMO...
Sorry, I have to repeat that. Just say all this league was shy, trade was as usual full of bots and ignorance. Seems quite negative. I don't know if you mean this as a joke. I don't know if this was actually your experience. I mean, if so, I'm sorry to hear, but that wasn't my experience. At all, to be honest. I don't mean that. Good. Good, because I hate that pessimistic thinking. A lot. Right.
Multi-million-pound expansion on MMORPGs. While you might get the occasional review on Final Fantasy XIV and its massive multi-million-pound expansions, or the cinematic trailers for The Elder Scrolls Online, you won't find PC Gamer discussing the monthly RuneScape patch notes, or print newspaper articles about the nerfs and buffs of Neverwinter. As an MMO fan, it can be important to step back and realize while the genre has passionate fans, the average person may not even know what the acronym MMO means. Games like Call of Duty, Candy Crush, and FIFA simply appeal to far more people. If gaming magazines were still the primary form of distributing gaming news, the editor would have to make a decision about what news deserves front page space, or even major article space within the magazine, and the MMO genre would never be the first choice. Now, print media is dying, but the principle remains the same with digital. Front page space is still limited on a website. While a gaming news site may be able to host an article about MMOs, it just won't get as many views as an article about, say, Apex Legends or Minecraft. This means reporting on MMOs is often too niche for major news sites, so you have the more focused sites like MMO Bomb or Massively OP. While these sites do a great job of reporting on the MMO world, world, they don't have the funding of the major sites. What this means is while individual creators can find levels of success, there's far less fame and fortune in MMO content than in other genres. MMO videos are often produced by individuals, not teams, and this impacts both the quality and quantity of content. The individuals need to play the games themselves, record the footage, write the scripts, record the voiceover, edit it, and then upload it, and all this takes time. Now, large corporations can crank out endless daily content with extremely high production values about popular games because they know those videos will be consumed by the gaming masses. While there are standout creators who have been able to produce high-quality content like Settled with his old-school RuneScape series, those videos take weeks, sometimes months to create. And a career on YouTube needs you to make consistent, high-quality videos.
Yeah, that's a problem. I don't know if Neverwinter still exists. I'm guessing. You know, lots of MMOs still exist. Terra existed for 10 years. Not anymore. But yeah, I literally can't anything but yes, you are right. Or at least I think you're right, Josh. Right? That's the only thing I can say. Wait, Terra is gone? Yep, I think they recently closed this year. Because they can't make more skins or microtransactions, so what's the point of making a game? You know, making a good game? Hell no. It's all about that money, boys. Good. At least I heard that. But yeah, he's very right. It just takes like I said, it takes an ungodly amount of time to actually play the goddamn video games, and then you have just a tiny fraction, at least a tiny fraction of what you could possibly make. So let me rephrase that. You could make Call of Duty content or Minecraft, as he said, get way more views, or you get a tiny fraction of people that care about MMOs that will read your article. What would you make? You know, I would say not sadly. Thankfully, there are people that still make that type of content because it's quite important, and I think it's good that it exists. Because if everybody would think like that, and there are still channels that think like that, and people that think like that are pretty much just grifters, I think is the right word, right? They just jump on the next goddamn train of whatever is popular. Fortnite is popular, let's jump on Fortnite. Minecraft is popular, let's jump to Minecraft. I don't know, Minecraft and Fortnite is popular, alright, let's make that a thing, right? They're just jumping on the next goddamn train and just grifting from thing to thing, you know? So, still good if one channel is just either doing whatever they enjoy, like mine. Don't forget to subscribe. No, memes aside, yeah, I just pretty much make videos of what I think is fun or what I just played. I do, well, fun. My last videos were about games I did not enjoy, but I still played them, and I just wanted to give my 2 cents about it. But yeah, in general, it's just, yeah, it's all about money, especially if it's in a company, right? Like these magazines and stuff, it's a company. So at the end of the day, they're like, you need to write something or make something that gets us views. That's it. Fortnite money. Minecraft or Fortnite, both. Both equals money.
The MMO content creation landscape is simply much smaller scale than many realize.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the same with anything. It's basically like concentric circles that become smaller the more that you get into it. And I use this analogy whenever I was talking about pay to win in games. It's that, you know, you have like the circle of people that play the game, the circle of people that consume content for the game, the circle of people who consume content for the game that they play, that care about this topic, and then inside of that are the people that are actually willing to do something about it. So whenever you actually get down into it, I think that's very much the case. And the MMOs, I think, are a very interesting type of genre, because a lot of people that play MMOs are, I think, a little bit more like nostalgic for how things were versus like maybe shooters or RPG games as a whole. And because of that, I think that you see a lot more of an aversion towards like the social media, phenomenon, and like the YouTube videos and content creators. And I've seen more pushback towards content creators in MMOs than I have in a bunch of other content, in a bunch of other types of types of genres of games.
You will sometimes run into people that play the game or have played the game, but it's not so big that it's all-encompassing. Everyone's heard about this, and I feel like generally, especially even for like very experienced Warframe players, people are pretty comfortable with that. Warframe is a game that is kind of one of the ones it's big, but nobody talks about it.
Yeah, I think
Warframe is exactly in the same boat as Path of Exile. People have heard about the name, but they can't really pinpoint specific things about it. Right? They might have played it, but it's like, yeah, it's like that type of game, right? It's so niche. I mean, and the funny thing, Josh literally did a podcast with Chris Wilson from Path of Exile, or from Grinding Gear Games that make Path of Exile. And even he said, Path of Exile is maybe small. I don't think he's literally said that, so maybe I'm massively paraphrasing here. So go watch the podcast. There's a 1 hour conversation, which was amazing between them, or with them. And overall, like games like Apex Legends are massive, but Path of Exile is not tiny. There's still like over tens of thousands of players that played league after league after league, right? I think he even said like maybe millions of players, right? Like brand new, unique players that come in, play a little bit, get out, and a new player come, right? And on the average, Path of Exile has like 10k plus players, right? Which is insane. That's an insane number of, like, that's average. That's all the time. Like, imagine a server that's constantly having to deal with 10,000 players all the time. It's insane. So that needs to, and you need the server capacity and everything to make that run, and even have spikes. Because, for example, if 3 streamers start playing Path of Exile, most of their fans probably download the game and play it maybe themselves, which is another spike of 2,000. And it's like, oh god, no. Especially some streamers having 10,000 viewers and more. I don't know what XQC has. How many viewers does XQC have? Probably 20k, right? I don't quite see the appeal in the mainstream games. Like Cisco Apex, I don't know why. Hype is usually a huge turnoff for me. I just play the games that I like. I don't care about the hype. I just play the games that I like. But I also don't buy the new games because I just don't like paying $60 for games. So I just wait. So if you will never, that's the reason why you will not see me play Stray, even though it's the game to get views right now. Well, not anymore, probably last week. Because I'm not gonna pay $60 for a game that looks visually beautiful, but just looking at it, it probably has barely any gameplay, and if it has gameplay, it's very basic. Because that's how you make the first game of any game. Have you seen the first Assassin's Creed? It was visually meh, basic gameplay, because they're testing out a concept. It needs to be marketable, but it needs to work. And how do you make things work as your first product? You make it simple as heck. That's what Stray is. Visually beautiful. Getting textures ain't that difficult. Maybe you can just buy them from, with the Unreal Engine 5 or somewhere. Yeah, and then just make a basic gameplay. I'm not saying it's easy to make games like this. Jesus Christ, no. But it's like, in general. Anyways, we're just gonna ramble here. This is a 1 hour and 45-minute video. We're gonna be here for 8 hours. I'm gonna play a walking simulator where you play as a cat. It nearly seems like it, yeah.
Massive.
Not saying that Stray doesn't look good. It doesn't look like a game I want to pay $60 for. That's why I don't play it, right? For example, I bought Metroid Dread because I'm a huge Metroid fan, but I knew I won't get 40 hours out of my 40 euros that I paid for it, right? No, never mind. I think Metroid Dread was 60. Never mind. Kill me.
Overestimated the size, and for one key reason. The players play multiple MMOs, but they only really have one MMO that they call home. Whenever we see like new MMOs coming out, you see existing like player bases just moving from MMO to MMO. And I think it's unfair to look at the population size from like a net total of all popular MMOs, because most people are jumping from one to the next. And I think that's the main factor, for me at least, in thinking that the audience isn't as big as we think. Because like you say, it's an even smaller audience that watch the content. But that's a more true audience because it's one YouTube account, to watch all the MMO content. And I think that's why we see a much smaller sample size in content creation.
The idea that within just the label of MMORPG that there is actually any idea of a community. I think the term MMORPG community is in and of itself an oxymoron. It's not to insult people who love MMORPGs, but you can just go out to any the main subreddit, but any space. MMOs are, like, I think almost in a way tribal by nature and by business model. But within that space, then you could talk about within people who enjoy the content, like not just play the games, but enjoy the content, people who then go about and share their opinion in a comment or a tweet or even post on the Reddit or even the fraction of a fraction of a fraction. And so MMORPGs are very niche.
In general, whenever you're doing anything, you're basically niche within a niche, and you're talking about fractions of percentages of player bases. It's definitely much smaller than what people would think from the actual player numbers.
I didn't think actually about the whole the WoW player switches to FF14 when there is a DLC coming out, which then switched back to Terra because he was bored of those two games, which then switches to another game that just recently came out, like maybe Lost Ark, because his friends are jumping on it, which then jumps back to WoW for a little bit, WoW Classic maybe, which then jumps maybe back a little bit to, like, I didn't think of that, but it makes obvious sense. Like, yes, you know. That's the same with me. Like, for example, if there would be Metroidvania games that are services, not games you buy, I would also probably switch between them because it's a genre I really like. And if they bring out more content after some time, I would probably play it. So therefore, I would also be the type of player who jumps from Metroidvania to Metroidvania, right? But there isn't. Because Metroidvanias are disgustingly difficult to make. At least really good ones.
I think the Twitch viewer numbers whenever a new MMO has released has shown there are a lot of people interested in MMOs waiting for the next big thing. New World plus Lost Ark are examples. 1 million players at launch, close to 1 million Twitch viewers. The interest is there, however the next-gen quality MMO that people are waiting for isn't.
The Hive leader, who used to do MMO-oriented videos, and then he left to pursue more comic-related, more generalized gaming videos because he knew that the MMO scene was continuing to stagnate. And my hairdresser that I go to every month, she has friends that have children. They're all gamers. They play things like Fortnite, like PUBG. He's pursuing content creation himself. He has a channel that's got, I think, like 20 or 30,000 views. So she asked me, hey, Mark, what kind of advice do you have for him? And I'm like, well, what kind of videos does he do? Because I do MMO-related content. And then asked her to clarify with me what exactly an MMO is. So then I said, it's a massively multiplayer game. And he goes, oh, so it's like Fortnite.
We live in a bubble. It feels...
Yo, that's quite some cringe alarm, boys. Fortnite is an MMO. I wanna die, bro. I wanna die then. That's not what he said. He was saying what the person thought was what MMO means, right? As someone who doesn't really care too much about MMOs, it hurt. It hurt. You know, it hurt. It hurt a little bit right here. It hurt. It hurt a little bit, just a little bit. Isn't it Fortnite MMO? Please stop, Mitch. Okay, good. There's the kappa. I was like wondering. Well, it is multiplayer. There are many people. It's massively. Yeah. Okay, cool.
It's like everything is so massive and big to us and popular, especially when we get a new game now. It's like, even if it's not a AAA game, we're just like, wow, look at this new game. Like, it's like, but when you look at a lot of our barriers, which I think are just some of them natural, right? Progression takes time, some more time investment. You look at the difficulties of the games in many cases have been too hard to even attract the right kind of audience. And having a stable internet connection, and in some cases being willing to pay the subscription fee, has been things that have been huge barriers that have kept the audience smaller. And feels like that content is big because our influence is big, right? We influence every other genre. Every other genre wants to be like us in some ways, but I don't think we actually move the needle, which is kind of what you're saying, as much as people might think.
If you were to
partially yes. I wouldn't say yes to everything that was just said. For example, internet connection isn't a problem anymore in general, right? I mean, of course there are parts of the world, I get it, but like, if Fortnite can reach millions of players, clearly internet isn't a problem because these games are multiplayer all the time. Or literally Black Ops 2 back in the day, which also had, I think, disgusting numbers, right? Like, let's be honest, okay? Internet ain't a big problem anymore. The amount of time a player can play, yes. I highly think that's the problem with MMOs. That it's, like, that's, I think, maybe the stigma of an MMO, which I think it's also kind of bad. As in, oh, it's an MMO? Alright, so I need to spend dozens of hours to get to somewhere, to spend the dozens of hours to spend, like, I get it, but then at that point, we're talking about also Path of Exile, but that's not how it works. It's not like you're playing dozens of hours and hate your life to then have fun. Like, you should never, sorry, got on my teeth, you should never think that way, right? if that MMO sounds fun, then you have hundreds of hours in front of you to have more fun. Potential, right? You don't know yet, but you can explore it. At the moment you don't have fun, then just stop. I don't know, it's a crazy thought. Stop playing games that you don't enjoy. Stop forcing yourself to play a game that you don't enjoy. I literally bought a game recently and I hated it. Or disliked it. I stopped playing it. I literally made a video about it. It's my latest video. I played 4 hours of it and I was like, okay, I'm done. I forced myself to play an hour or two more, right? Let's be honest. Yeah, in my experience, it was a very grindy. Yeah, they're very grindy, but that's literally the path of exile, right? It is, well, it's not grindy for the sake of being grindy. It's, well, partially. But it's always the balance of, okay, stuff needs to be worth something. How do you make it worth? By spending, or you need to spend more time to get there. Time is a perfect aspect, right? That's the only aspect, to be honest. I don't even know how you make it otherwise. Money is another aspect. But then we're talking about LOL, pay to win, you know? Like either you spend the amount of money or you spend the amount of time. I mean, what are you talking about, Anif? Are you enjoying Minecraft? No. No, Minecraft has a variety of issues, which I'm definitely gonna... I think it was you, Mitch, right? With the keep inventory. I have been thinking about it, activating it. I have really been thinking about it. So, it has one huge issue. No, it has a couple. No, it has a couple. Which all come down to actual content. Java can't move containers with business. Yes, that's the problem. Anyways, moving on.
Talking to like a mum and you were like, hey, I play an MMORPG, they'd be like, what's that? Is that like Fortnite? Because the concept of an MMO is massively multiplayer online. So it gives that false perception that there are so many people to populate, but in reality, it really isn't. I think there's a small amount of gamers that play MMORPGs regularly. It's interesting that 50 to 70,000 seems like a lot of people because it actually isn't. I think there's like 8 million people playing Fortnite right now, and that's a lot of people.
Even just talking to a friend, his idea of an MMO.
In comparison, it isn't a lot. In real life aspects, 50,000 people is a frick ton of people, let's be honest. 50,000 people. I think cities that deal with 50,000 people are fuming and are like, oh my god, that's the amount of electricity and water and dirt and sound and, you know, it's a lot of people, let's be honest, you know. And even I think in servers, because I think lots of these content creators probably haven't worked with servers, neither have I, but I don't really want to imagine how it is to make a server that handles 50,000 concurrent players, that is smooth, doesn't lag on the other side of the world, wherever the person is. Dear God, you know, dear God, the absolute network nightmare that is 50,000 concurrent players, or consistently all the time. And you can't just be like, oh yeah, guys, we're just taking the server down once a day. Like, you're gonna kill the game. Like, they're so complicated, so brutally complicated. And some extremely smart people figured that out years ago, probably, and still figure out more. I mean, I think I've been raised well by my brother because he played WoW, and that's how I got into MMOs. I mean, I also play a little bit of MMOs, but it never really clicked for me. I don't know. So something was always off. I don't know. And I recently even played Alien. I mean, Alien is also a shit MMO. But anyways, moving on.
Came from...
Alien is, by the way, the second game from the Terra guys.
What was that show? Big Bang Theory. I mean, I've not really watched much of it, but I can already tell that it's probably toned down quite a lot. It's probably a lot harder for the general audience to understand what an MMO is, and then to describe that in a very simplistic way, I can see that being a challenge in of itself. Because I don't really see MMOs being talked about too much, to be honest, besides YouTube.
If you have 5, 6, 7 friends...
It depends on, I think, the age, right? Like, how do you explain MMOs? First of all, how do you explain it, but to which people, right? Because if I, for example, talk about MMOs to my colleague, which is 55 plus years old, I think right now, 50 plus years old, and I recently just was a little bit of a weird thing that I did, whatever. I put my own video on because I really wanted to watch that one scene of Horizon Zero Dawn. It was a small 1-minute clip of just some things in the game. It is in one of my videos, the one that is an hour long or something. It's literally 1 hour in. I wanted to see it. I left it on screen and just mentioned how beautiful it is, and the colleague kind of saw it and we briefly talked about it, right? But trying to explain Horizon Zero Dawn to him in like, it's an open world, and like, I don't think he understands, right? So the age really depends on explaining certain aspects. I don't need to explain to a gamer what a third-person game is, right? But to him, he wouldn't understand. So it's not only how do you explain it, but it's also like, to who do you explain it to? Anyways, I like my PoE in ESO and I will stay with him, I think. Oh, Elder Scrolls Online. Yeah, I love that game. Don't watch my VODs because I'm pretty sure I made a stream about it and I think it's saved. You will not like it.
An MMO can feel very lively. It can feel, that's not 12 million. Like, we're talking 6. Like, could fit in a large SUV. Like, that's what it takes. And some of these games call for 25. Like, they don't take this big thing. But there's so many ways to play, and there's such big games that you end up honed in with your little group of like 8 or so, and that ends up defining your experience. Somebody can have a bad guild experience and can quit an MMO, even though that was really based on probably 2 or 3 out of like 20 people that put the bad taste in their mouth. So I think not only are they not that big, but they don't have to be that big.
I think in recent years,
I feel like I only got half of the context that was just said, but I would be very interested to see, and I don't think any of these content creators are that. I don't know yet. We will see in the next hour and 30 minutes if any of these players or these content creators that are in this video talk about the aspect of MMO or playing an MMO as one person. It is a massively multiplayer online game. That doesn't mean you need to play it with a guild. That doesn't mean you need to play it with friends. That doesn't even mean you need to talk to other people potentially, depending on how the game is set up. That's how I play my MMOs. I never played with anyone. I 99% played on my own. I don't know if any content creators can talk from that perspective. Does it maybe matter? We'll see. But hey, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm reacting. I'm adding content to this video. At least that's what I'm hoping for. This is an online game. You often play with people. True, dude. And team play is very good. Team play in PoE? I don't know. Either way, yes. In PoE, I do talk to people. But I also don't think PoE is an MMO. It has the MMO tag, and I don't like it. But yeah.
that has started to shift a little bit. I think I felt like that more longer ago than maybe in the past couple of years, because I mean, recently we've seen a lot of hype and a lot of publicity around Lost Ark, New World. Like last year, there was a massive media frenzy about the WoW Exodus. I don't know, maybe my perspective is distorted because I'm in this community, and so when I see a lot of news about FF14, I'm like, oh well, everybody is clearly talking about FF14. My game is big and getting bigger, but that I'm not sure if I can give an honest answer to that while I'm so entrenched within this bubble, right? Like, can I be really objective about that when I can't? I'm knee deep in it.
So the people and few organizations who are making
it's deep. It's really difficult to be objective about a game that you're deep into it and also really enjoy. I think it's super difficult. I always try to be objective as much as possible with Path of Exile, but there's 100% still bleeding some subjectivity a word, some subjective thing through, right? Like even if it's literally the sentence I'm saying, or if it's between the lines I'm saying, right? There's still some subjective thing bleeding into my whatever I'm saying about PoE sometimes. 100%, even if I try to be objective.
MMO content are often much smaller, but now let's look at who we're making content for. And I'd like to focus on the general MMO content style, overviews of many games, and not specializing into a single game yet. An MMO is designed to be played for many hundreds or thousands of hours. They are multi-year long experiences, and because of this, it's difficult to fully commit to multiple. If you're playing World of Warcraft for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're not going to be able to find the time to also play 8 hours of the Elder Scrolls Online every day, and Guild Wars 2, and RuneScape. This means the most hardcore players of any MMO
I'll do it. Let's go, guys. I'm gonna kill myself before I do this. He literally mentioned all the games I do not like. Okay, maybe Guild Wars 2. I think Guild Wars 2 I did play, I think, for the longest. And I kind of enjoyed. Would I enjoy it right now? I don't know. What did I enjoy about Guild Wars 2? I cannot tell you.
Often committed to that one game. While they may dabble in others, they do not know it to the extent of their main game. They know every aspect of that game. They are, in effect, an authority on that game. The real danger with extreme fans is when that game becomes more than a game to them. It becomes a character trait, a lifestyle, or in extreme cases, a lifeline. MMOs are designed to be able to exploit addictive personalities, and in some cases, players with antisocial personalities or social issues in real life will retreat into the MMO world, and the MMO world can become more real to them than reality, meaning any critique or review of their MMO is seen as a personal attack against them. Now, all hobbies have the toxic extremists within them, but the MMO genre is uniquely designed to be played for thousands of hours and to give you a second reality to immerse yourself in. While hobbies such as painting or running or cooking can be immersive and people can certainly build personalities around them, they don't encourage or facilitate the creation of a totally separate reality in the way MMOs do. This can lead to hardcore players becoming so deeply isolated within their game's subculture that it can begin to feel like the game is the biggest thing in the world. Everyone they know plays it. Everyone they know likes it. Existing within that social bubble of an MMO game can slowly warp a player's perception of how important that game is, or status within that game is, to everyone else. And then a reviewer or content creator comes along and makes a video on that game. Unless that reviewer is one of the hardcore fans themselves and already has thousands of hours in that game, the fans will look at the review and ask, what gives you the authority to review my game? Hardcore fans will want to be represented and critiqued by someone just as experienced and committed as them. And while that's totally understandable from a gaming content perspective, it can
impossible.
mean any review from a reviewer with fewer hours invested than the hardcore player base gets immediately discarded. Hobbies are, of course, important. And
he's probably very much talking about himself because he has, you know, what's the worst MMO series, so... or worst MMO series, so he jumped in so many MMOs and probably said, it's garbage, or could be better, or this is cool, but also this sucks, and probably thousands or hundreds of, well, not hundreds of thousands of people, probably a lot of people probably just commented or wrote him or whatever and mentioned, hey, shut up. I played this game for 1,000 hours. You played it only for 8. Get the fuck out. You know, there's probably around the answers he probably gets a lot.
A variety of hobbies allows you to experience a variety of things in your life, but a hobby should always enhance your life and not become it or trap it. Extended time inside a virtual world can sometimes blur the lines between virtual and reality. I'm not saying you shouldn't be proud of the achievements you have within games, but you shouldn't confuse them with meaningful life progression outside of the game. When an MMO game becomes someone's main source of socializing or of
I can actually see that, thankfully, because I'm working out. Like, working out is, and seeing just my body progress, or having seen it progress over the years, is definitely like such a big achievement that can also be seen that can only be seen outside of the game. Even though I played over 5,000 hours now in Path of Exile. And though funny enough, I think I played 3,500 hours of these 5,000 hours since I started working out. So it's like, and I've grown in both games, but what would people see? My extreme accomplishment in Path of Exile, or my knowledge, which knowledge can't be seen, but okay, or literally my body. Because it's so funny actually to see this, how I think came across more, nerdy, you know what I mean? Like you kind of see the people and you're like, oh, it might be a little bit nerdy, it definitely maybe doesn't really work out, or maybe it's just, I don't want to say you judge people by how they look, but it's more like you partially categorize them a little bit, which is not good, but it's just easy for us people, correct? And I got seen as the guy who works out in my job that I have now since 2019. That has never ever happened. And that was, by the way, a year into working out. Not 4 years, 1 year. Just I think maybe because how I hold myself and or how I looked in that moment, people, or at least one colleague, saw me as the guy who works out, which never happened in 26 years before. It's kind of insane. But that's can only be seen by working out, of course. Other aspects, of course, could be, yeah, just maybe having a great group of friends. For example, if you have a birthday party with 20 friends, but not a lot of them know each other, will realize, wow, we have 20 friends, and they see you, being active with them, then yeah, it just clearly shows you're very charismatic. You have built a lot of relationships. How do you show that to people when you played 5,000 hours of a video game? So real life, as just TLDR, real life good. Game also good, but not as good. So, while you grind in the game, you might also want to grind IRL. Just FYI.
Personal pride through virtual achievements, reviews.
Grind on something. No. Grind on these nuts. Got 'em! Alright, moving on.
Especially negative ones, can be met with extreme, abusive, or in some cases dangerous backlash.
I think I've been dealing with that for the last 5 years, probably longer than that. I think it's just the case is because it's, again, like it's what you said, whenever you attack the game, you attack their identity, because so much of their identity is tied up with the game that whenever you say that this game is bad, well, whenever you've invested 10,000 hours into a game, and then somebody tells you that it's bad, you start getting a little bit of effectively buyer's remorse. What did I spend 10,000 of my hours for? What did I spend my life on the past 10 years? If it's bad, you can't tell me that I wasted all my time on something that's bad. So I think people do take it very personally. I think that also content creators, there are just some nuances to making content with like MMOs that are more unique than that would be for other genres. So like, for example, people gift you items and people are able to like help you get certain things. And I think that does create a certain amount of animosity with people that want to use MMOs and video games as a whole, is that video games used to be that great equalizer for a lot of people who didn't necessarily have a lot of opportunities to maybe be successful in real life or do something, that's noteworthy in real life. They could go to a video game and be put on an even playing field with somebody who made $1 million a year or somebody who was 6'8" or something like that.
The big issue with
there was, by the way, a Niv, very good. Let's go, hell yeah. Also Pog. Goddamn, what was the one aspect he mentioned at the beginning? Okay, let me briefly go back.
All my time on something that's bad.
Yes, exactly that. I definitely also have that issue because I spent 5,000 hours in Path of Exile. Someone saying game bad, Omega lol, does hurt quite a lot, but I have started to realize, I started to look inside and realize, okay, I probably say that to a lot of games that other people enjoy. Literally just did it 4 seconds ago about Elder Scrolls Online. I don't like the game, but Kataton likes it. Yeah, that's it. We all like different games. Who gives a fuck, right? Great. Actually great that we have so many different games that we all can enjoy. Or at least, I hope there's one game everyone can enjoy, As long as it's not Candy Crush, because fuck Candy Crush.
Or in real life, they could go to a video game or something like that.
The big issue with the hyper-enfranchised players, and I was this at one point, I mean, I've been covering Warframe for honestly a large part of it. I was out of touch with the usual player, and I feel like that's where most people will get to. Whenever you have spent enough time in a game that you kind of don't remember learning how to play it, and you spend a lot of time around these friend groups, like you said, that are also in the game and very experienced, you can begin to see yourself as being the average player when in most cases, if you're a long-term member of a community that is spending, multiple days a week on a game, you are not the average player of that game.
Yeah.
And the other side of that, which is the much more unreasonable and very toxic, which is that you will begin to view yourself as the player that matters most, where your feedback is the one that's important. It's the one that the devs should pay attention to. The new content should be for you.
An MMO becomes your second
Whoa, I need to...
Groups, like you said, that are... You are not the average player of that game. And the other side of that, which is the much more unreasonable and very toxic, which is that you will begin to view yourself as the player that matters most, where your feedback is the one that's important. It's the one that the devs should pay attention to. The new content should be for you.
Okay, yeah, okay. I thought he wants to be the one to be looked at, but no, he doesn't. I think so. But he just said people that play the game a lot view themselves as, hey devs, look at me, I play your game a lot, make content for me, the best of the best, the one who plays your game a lot. I get it, which by the way is dumb, because Path of Exile does this in a very good way, right? They usually go in like both directions a little bit. They definitely give the top players a little bit, but they also have to look at they look very much at the newbies, right? The newer players, because they have to get into the game to then be able to become the top players, or attempt to become the top players, right? And buy microtransactions, of course. Go buy more microtransactions. No, but yeah.
An MMO becomes your second life. You know, this is where you want to spend all your time. And with MMOs just shifting and dying constantly, it's like this big cycle of just churning through the next MMO. People don't want their MMO that they've found as a home to die, and that they almost like protect it like a child. And it leads to, like you said this before, tribalism, where your opinion may be completely valid, but they don't want it to be valid. If there are big flaws in a game like New World, which there were, we both exposed humongous flaws with that game, the community will rally and try and, you know, pull it under their wing and protect it and say, yeah, but it's early days, where we're actually advocating for them to get a better version of the game that they bought, you know, the version that they were promised. But they don't see it that way. They see it as us, you know, slowly knocking the nail into the coffin.
Have I felt the sting from the MMO community? Well, yeah, like not maybe just their identity, but it's their community. The perception that you might be preventing others from checking out their game, there's a risk. It's this weird gatekeeping mentality where you're going to say what we want you to say within this, here's the approved space. And we're also not going to we're not going to talk about it in this way because we don't want these type of players, you know, coming into our space. You know, like I want, and I believe that honesty and authenticity within content is more important than somebody's feelings about a game.
I'm not sure I'd say that
it's like, even if you like ESO, for example, I mean, ESO is the perfect example. Also, it's right now on screen. You should still say how you like or dislike the game, no matter if you hurt other people or other players, because your opinion is still your opinion and still worth. It might not matter at the end of the day, right? Like, depends on if the developers really care about it, or, well, not you specifically, but of course you say your stuff, other people say their stuff. Maybe it's a general thing that people dislike. The developers realize, oh, a lot of people are talking about this one aspect. All right, let's look into this one aspect and then decide, is this correct or is this wrong? Oh, it's correct. All right, let's change something, right? But you still need to say something. Of course, they're not going to watch my 20-minute video about XY, but still. You know, maybe in general, still, saying your opinion is still important, right? As long as it's in a constructive manner and not being like, this game's garbage, guys. Like, I don't think that's a good way of, you know, constructive criticism, to be honest. Just, I don't think that gets you very far.
More, I think maybe percentages. I think once you get into like the hardcores, then probably, and there probably are more hardcores in MMOs just because of the time investment. But yeah, I think it's probably worse than other games in general. I would just say, just do whatever makes you happy and then just don't read the comments.
There were death threats a few years ago when I made a negative video about Final Fantasy XIV. The video was awful, to be fair, but still.
So gaming was an outlet for me. I made a lot of friends in them. I ended up preferring that to the life that I was living. So I can understand how these people are going from their life. You know, they might work a 9-to-5 job that they hate. They come home and they get into this game where there's someone powerful. The kind of scene that we paint is different to the grand image that they have of the game. So I can understand how they feel that we're personally attacking like a major part of their life with regards to how that's going to potentially affect new content creators. If your views don't necessarily align with the vocal majority, then they are going to crucify you. It doesn't matter what you say, what kind of defense that you have, they will hate on you and attack your views and your opinions regardless.
That is, I think, a huge aspect of literally psychology. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's all psychology, right? Like, I for example, I thought of, oh yeah, they're gonna crucify you, they're gonna hate you, and then I thought like, oh yeah, it's like a hive mind, you know, they all think the same, right? It's an MMO of a small group of players. They're gonna be very vocal about things. Then I realized, oh yeah, that's like Path of Exile subreddit right now since the changes and since they announced the changes, because Reddit is usually a hive mind, right? But then I realized, yeah, but it's literally politics. If you are part of something that you have invested time in, you are very likely trying to save or protect what you have put time in, you know? Yo, it's Spyro is back. Let's go. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Also, Asa, why?
I feel like you and I both probably have a similar answer in the sense that we probably have a lot of experiences with this sort of thing. So I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can because unfortunately we both have series that basically, even just by reading the name, can make you mad. Negative experiences that come to mind for me specifically have to be Final Fantasy 14 fans in almost any capacity.
Final Fantasy 14.
Sometimes by meaning well, they do so much harm. And I think that's obviously something we're probably talking about here in a sense, is the hyper-end franchise fans can actually make their game a lot less accessible. So I'll say like Final Fantasy 14 fans were an example of that, and also
yeah, I definitely agree with that. I was seeing things. No, I think I know what you looked at. It kind of looked like an ass. Yeah, it kind of looked weird. I think it's just like some ceramic thing. Anyways, but yeah, it's a very good point. Of course, like a very toxic community will turn people away, and that's really bad. And that actually is the opposite of what happened with Path of Exile and me. Because Path of Exile had such an incredibly open, fun, and like self-aware community. It was just a joy jumping into that community and playing, and sometimes just seeing people talk or chatting up with some people, you know, like trading. This is where I, you know, interacted with players for the rare cases in an MMO. And especially coming from League of Legends, you know, quite a toxic place, I think. Going from League of Legends, which the reason why I stopped playing League of Legends years ago now is because of the community. Like most games I joined, literally the first thing I did was mute all. That's what I did. Game after game after game after game. Because it was garbage. And I think it's still garbage. On top of the problem of you are in the hands of a team. Anyways, we're not going to go into that. But yeah, going from League of Legends to Path of Exile was like going from like a really dark place and seeing the light. And I'm like, oh yes, thank you. There is a good place. There's a good game that I enjoy with a good community. Fuck yes. It's insane. It was like night and day. It was literally night and day, you know. Night being League of Legends and day being Path of Exile.
I find it a lot in roleplay centric games, like SWTOR, for example. It's a very roleplay centric game. So for role players, they're looking and trying to play the game in a completely different way. So they don't care about a lot of the same concerns that I might have, or you might have, or someone else might have, right? Who's playing it for more than just roleplay.
I've got quite a unique position, I think, creating content with World of Warcraft, because the overall perspective of WoW is quite negative. You know, hyper in franchise fans actually not liking the game. And so when I do say something positive about the game, because the game is actually really good in certain elements, they don't like that. If you think something else is good or something else is bad, your opinion is invalidated. If your opinion doesn't follow the cult group opinion of the game, you're alienated. And it almost feels like you're causing trouble by speaking your mind. It's kind of like going against the grain. And if you go against what they are already thinking, then it doesn't matter what you say. Your opinion's invalidated. It doesn't mean anything because it's not what they already think of the game.
Yeah, this is
literally Reddit. She described Reddit right there. That's literally what she did. The moment Path of Exile subreddit is not a good place, the game itself is great. The subreddit on its own, it's still Reddit, and it's a certain hive mind. And if you go there and talk positive, you will barely, maybe even not even get, like at the end of the day, you might have positive karma. I know karma isn't like the end all be all, it's a number, but it still kind of shows like how many people agree with you and or disagree with you. And usually when I posted something positive, it either got 10 upvotes or at the end it was 10 karma, but probably went into the negatives. And I'm like, I said something positive about a game the subreddit is about. What am I doing wrong? You know what I mean? And it's just so weird. That's actually a huge problem. It's insane. Anyways, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the truth about MMO content creators just as context, you know. Reddit has the same problem. As you say something positive about the game they play and enjoy, and they're taken a part of in the community outside of the game, because it's Reddit's a separate thing. and still, like, you're being, I don't know, like, looked at wrong, or just, you know, just F you, I don't know, like, not that aggressively, but it's weird, right? And yeah, it's weird when she had that experience. Like, she's talking good about World of Warcraft, but everyone who plays World of Warcraft says not F you, but it's like, game bad, go away. It's like, are we not playing the same game here? Can we not just talk about good aspects of the game? Like, is everything bad? Then why are you playing? Why are you still here? You know what I mean?
This is an absolute classic one. This is a topic I actually really like to talk about on stream. I try and push back against it as much as I possibly can, because I think it's ultimately incredibly self-destructive, actually, to MMO communities. Like, when you look at, you know, if you look at a game and you go, wait, these guys are like a cult, or you go like, wait, do I really want to play? Do I want to get into this? It's a little bit weird, right? And for sure, I definitely think this happens with MMOs a fair bit, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It's because it's such a big part of your identity, right? A big part of your life. You're like, wait, have I wasted my time? Did I pick the wrong game? What am I doing, right? This is not, you know, this is right. This can't be right. You know, this is my game. I play this game. So, or if you are going to be very critical of the game, it's not going to be interpreted in good faith, and that's putting it politely.
My latest upload on Starbase, right? And it's a self-proclaimed MMO, right? They say that it's an MMO, make your own fun kind of thing. A player-based economy. It's all about the players. Now, the game was already kind of dead. I mean, it's on life support, okay? So with about, let's say, 200 players max, even then, I was terrified, because the amount of hours you would need and the amount of hours you see on some reviews, you know, coming up to nearly thousands of hours. You look at that and you think to yourself, well, I'm coming in, I want to tell a story. I also don't have thousands of hours to make this video. I don't want to risk just looking at links online and trying to put two and two together and missing something else that's hidden that everyone's going to call me out on. Why not just speak to the community? Almost kind of turn into, well, yes, this game has gone downhill, but there is a really good community behind it.
Is I think we get really tribalistic because we've allowed
That's a good way of
hobby
looking at it.
to become maybe more of our life than it should be. Escapism on its own is healthy. I think it's nice to be able to get out of your own skin from time to time, and every hobby does it. But I think when you let it get to the point that you need to like physically threaten or attack somebody, I don't know where the line is, but you're way past it.
MMOs are unique in that they do tend to encourage that human nature that tends to want to join a tribe and protect the tribe and be part of the tribe, because they're so community driven, because they're social. That's the thing that really makes MMOs unique, and it is a double-edged sword for sure. There are people who do make the MMO that they're playing their whole identity, their whole personality revolves around that. And so recently we've seen some problems with that. But there is definitely a subset of MMO players that treat it like it's us versus them. It is our tribe against the other tribe, which is bizarre and unsettling because they forget, this is a product.
If you
Sorry with my weird face that I just did. It has nothing to do with what she just said. It was the volume. I'm guessing she ain't recording that with a proper microphone, because it literally hurt my ears right now, listening to what she said. Not what she said, but the quality of the audio is... I can't say it nicely. It's garbage. It's just straight up garbage. I'm sorry. That's just my honest opinion about the audio quality.
do decide to create...
Not of Josh, like, of this.
Which is bizarre and unsettling because they forget, this is a product.
If you do decide...
It's garbage, let's be honest, right? Like, you wouldn't want to listen to a stream that is 7 hours long in that quality. Unless, well, maybe if you don't have headphones on. I can see that. Or maybe on your phone. I can see that.
To create content within the MMO world, either on YouTube or Twitch, you've got two basic channel types. There are variations between these, but broadly, you'll either be general genre focused or specific game focused. General creators are able to give a broad overview of the genre at the expense of specialist knowledge within each game. These are creators like myself, The Lazy Peon, or Kira TV. We're able to paint with a broad brush, but this can mean missing the finer details. So instead of being a general MMO creator, you could specialize into a single game. It's absolutely possible to do. Many people have found YouTube and Twitch success as champions of their chosen game. Zeppler plays Final Fantasy XIV, The Mighty Teapot plays Guild Wars 2, Brozine plays Warframe, and each of them have lots of detailed content around that specific game, but even specializing is not without risks. The benefits of specializing are the community come to see you as an authority, and you're always able to make very specific, nuanced content. You're able to fully explore the depths of a game's systems that a general creator will miss or not have the time to explore. But the risks are how you are connecting your YouTube or your Twitch or even yourself as a level of celebrity to this game specifically. You're binding your career to it. And if the game fails, so do you. The larger specialized channels we have now are very talented and they also happen to choose the correct games to bind themselves to find success. If WildStar had just released and you went all in on being a WildStar content creator, you're going to be pretty unhappy when the game shuts down and your YouTube back catalogue is now irrelevant. Or the Twitch streams you've been relying on for income suddenly see a massive drop in viewership because the game people know you for is gone, and people valued the game more than you. Specializing into a single game as a full-time creator is only an advantage if the audience who cares about your specialist knowledge is large enough to sustain you. Every time a new MMO comes out, we see waves of people decide this is the one. They specialize and they build careers up around Terra, or Elion, or Neverwinter, or more recently, New World. And if the game flops, so do they. Now, New World is still going, but the creators are not seeing anywhere near the amount of views they were when the game first released. General MMO content creators know...
Oof, I just looked at the views. 1.6k, 3.9, 945, 5.8, 5.4, 1.2. I mean, I shouldn't talk about numbers, you know? The biggest small streamer, biggest... How do I say? I'm a small guy, you know. But I also don't live from my income on the internet. I have a full-time job. So, but if they actually went full in, and that's their full-time job, and you get 945, okay, that's an 18 hours ago. Let's say 4 days ago, you have 5.8k views in 4 days. Boy, that's rough. God, I hope you have a huge Patreon with like thousands of people paying you at least $1 a month.
Make a decision on general versus specialist. For example, while I'll happily make a silly video on, say, Swords of Legend Online, I won't pour thousands of hours into it to become a specialist before I do, because I simply do not think that would be a smart use of my time. I am aware this means my content will sometimes miss the more esoteric details of a game and anger the player base for it, but that's a choice I've made.
As soon as you see, like...
I mean, it's interesting that he thinks that way, but it's also like, how do you present the series that he does? You know, if you're serious, and that's how I see just Josh's series about worst MMO ever, is, sadly I had an accent there, I just see it as he chooses any MMO that he just randomly maybe comes across, or maybe he has a list, I don't know, and plays it for the first, I think, around 8-ish hours, right? And then he decides what he enjoyed and what he disliked in those 8 hours. That is it. It is not about... I mean, the worst MMO ever is kind of a little bit misleading, you know, I get it, right? But it also needs to be it's a little bit clickbaity, but like, okay. But still, if you watch 2 episodes of this and you're like, okay, he plays 8 hours and then he just says his 2 cents about it, that's the video. And I see it as that. I'm not gonna, for example, as someone, if the moment he plays Path of Exile, and we all know he did, and he went through the story as far as I realized, and he started to play a new character, and if and like when and or if he makes a video about Path of Exile, and he's only judging the first 8 hours, then that is that. I'm not gonna judge him and be like, yeah, but in the end game you have more but no. He played the first 8 hours, and if he doesn't like the first 8 hours, he will not play more. And that's kind of how you should play a game. The moment you don't enjoy playing the video game anymore, stop playing the video game. So I think that's perfect for a series. And sadly, there are still some people like this, but you shouldn't really judge it by, but you will have way more fun if you play another 20 hours. Like, no. If you didn't enjoy the first 8 hours of the game that you enjoy so much, then he probably won't enjoy the next 3 times as much.
Like a game losing popularity, you can look at the directory and see that all of the people that used to be getting, you know, like say 5,000 viewers, now they're getting 1,000 viewers, and it just keeps going down. So I think that...
I mean, let's be honest, 1,000 viewers on Twitch is a lot. Dude, if I have 1,000 viewers on Twitch, I literally, the chat will probably move so fast I can't even properly follow it anymore, which is gonna really suck because I like Twitch, the Twitch community and my chat. I love reading it because there are people, and it's live, so it has a little bit more weight, whatever that means. Haha, weight, Path of Exile, weight. Anyways, weight as in a YouTube comment. I still very much appreciate every comment I get, but a live viewer has, I feel like, a little bit more weight, whatever that means. But you know what I mean? Like 1,000 views is still a ton. Let's be honest. Like, you can make a living off 1,000 views. I'm 90% sure. Maybe.
The biggest risk whenever you're becoming a specialized content creator is that whenever you are playing a game that doesn't really have an audience large enough to necessitate you only playing that game. So for example, people that only play Minecraft, they can do it because Minecraft is like the biggest game in the world. People that play Fortnite, many of them can do it too. But I think that once you get into smaller games with smaller audiences, that's whenever it becomes less sustainable and a lot more volatile, because you're much more at the whims of the current state of that individual game. Like I know this for WoW is that in WoW, like there would be sometimes back in like Legion where I'd have 10,000 viewers, or I think during the Tomb of Sargeras release I had 25,000 viewers. It was insane. And then the next couple of days I went back down to 4, and so that's a huge difference. And that's what happens whenever you
4 or 4,000? Excuse me. It's just I got a couple questions. Because 4,000 is a fuck ton of viewers, dude. That's a lot of viewers. Anyways, I still get his point. Path of Exile is the same case. For example, the beginning of a league is usually where you have a lot of viewers. You can kind of see it similar to the Steam charts. League releases in Path of Exile, massive numbers on Steam, also very big numbers on Twitch. And as the league progresses, the numbers go down because people stop playing, they don't have time, they drop out. For example, I think Kataton mentioned it earlier, Elden Ring comes out, right, last league. Lost Ark came out, people drop out, play other games, etc. Right? That's fair. So, and Path of Exile isn't a huge game, so all these creators that play Path of Exile, they're probably like, man, this month was really good. I got close to $1,000 with donations and subs, and it's sick. It's poggers. And then the second month hits, and it's like, oh, it's getting a little bit close. And then the third month hit, and it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, and it's suddenly like less than half than the first month, and you're like, it's just time to eat some ramen instead of some actual food. Okay, nothing against ramen. Ramen is good, but let's be honest, it's not really nutritious, right?
Making content for one specific game is that your popularity is tied to that game.
The reason that I started creating content the way that I do, which is entirely about Warframe, is because I completed Warframe. I decided that the end game of Warframe now for me, which is still a thing that was up for debate, the end game for me now is that I am a content creator now, and I am going to help the new players. I became that type of creator purely based on the love of the game, and whether or not it was going to succeed or fail, I was just going to go in that direction because I really like Warframe a lot. It is my favorite game. The difference for general creation is that you do get a much more narrow view at any game, and the unfortunate bit about that is that it means that if you do stumble across that game, like if you stumble across your Warframe, you probably won't be able to spend as much time with it as you'd really want to, and also it would be hard to focus in your large general audience into the specifics of what you now want to get into.
It's a tough thing to do because, as you said, you miss out on some of the more specific details that hyper fans of that game would expect to see, but at the same time you actually have a lot more knowledge of the general genre, and that can be invaluable in the sense that when I'm reviewing New World, I can use my knowledge of Mortal Online, my knowledge of RuneScape, and not Terra anymore, but any of those games as a kind of cross-reference, right? I can review it in a more unbiased way. However, you are correct in the sense that being a specialized content creator gives you all these extra details, all this information that's super important to a lot of people. If a content creator starts out with New World and they ride the massive hype train at the beginning, they're going to come crashing down with it as well if they don't diversify. It's like the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Also, FYI, it's funny to see Calum having the same issues I literally had when editing my Twitch highlights recently. I saw my old Twitch highlights or my old Twitch clips where my audio was peaking so freaking much. It is ridiculous. It is literally hurting my ears while editing the video. I don't know how I can fix it. Maybe I'm just going to leave it. But the funny thing is, that was 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Calum, which is a relatively, I think, new content creator as far as I know, also has the same issues. It's just peaking audio. Audio sucks ass sometimes. Literally, I just fixed my audio in the past 2 days, or I think I fixed it. I made it better. So technically, I was having bad audio the past years because I didn't use a certain filter in OBS. Anyways, has nothing to do with it. I just realized that his audio peaked. Moving on.
I think algorithmically, you're setting yourself up for a world of depression and anxiety and even mental health problems that they're going to challenge you and push you and make you question your own sanity. So the thing about being generalized, it's very valuable to your mental health. The thing about being specific is that as a career, that's a niche within a niche within a niche within a niche. And so the solution that I've actually developed is actually what I do is multi-channel. So I have a New World focused channel. I have a Final Fantasy focused channel. When it comes down to it, like, yeah, I think a handful of games is the best way, but algorithmically, you have to actually multi-channel because the algorithm is going to hit you.
You have more.
That's a good point. I actually heard this from, I think, a relatively new content creator in the Path of Exile scene. I forgot his name. You focus, or it would make a lot of sense to have multiple channels about multiple games that you enjoy. However you manage that with time, I mean, depending on if you find a really good, like, you need to find the perfect content strategy that is interesting, gets views, but doesn't really take a lot of time to edit and make. Otherwise, you're gonna be in hell, because you can never make enough content for 2 channels, maybe, or 3 or 4, depends on how many games you want to, like, how many channels you want to make about a specific game. It's horrible. Like, I, for example, it's so funny to see it now because I went from specific to general with my channel, but not with one channel. I just made a new channel and made it general. I made it generalized it. It probably isn't a good idea, but I have a lot more fun just having a channel where I can post whatever game I want, but I still kind of stick to, or at least now I stick to, some sort of like first impression kind of videos, compared to my old channel, which some of you may know, probably Shaggy, because he has been here for like 7-8 years, is Terraria. I popped off and got to my, I think, nearly 10k subs with Terraria back in 2015, 7 years ago, or 6 years ago, I don't know exactly. But I went away from this because I realized, first of all, I didn't enjoy the game anymore, but I was also like struggling making goddamn content about the game, right? At some point, you just sucked everything out of the game. It's dry at some point. It's just like, it's still insane to think maybe some people, like, he actually mentioned a channel that makes content around RuneScape. Like, I don't know how. The game is super old, right? At some point, you just run out of content. I mean, there are still people making content about Path of Exile, but thankfully, Path of Exile has this thing of it gets updates, you know? Terraria didn't get updates for like 2.5 years, so what the heck do you do for 2.5 years of content? The 7th playthrough of a mage character? It's like, I don't know.
Freedom to do whatever you want, because it's not just tying your channel to that game, it's also tying that you have to make videos about that game.
Yeah.
Which means if you stop enjoying it, then, you know, what else are you going to do? You're going to have to pivot at some point, or like you say, your channel's going to die. So I think the benefit is just
literally
more freedom to do whatever you want.
The benefits of specializing are, if a top tier MMO ever does come out that you get hooked into, then there's new content with every update, and you become the authority figure of that game, and you'll likely be invited to community events or even get offered a community manager backup job, as has happened with RuneScape and Guild Wars 2 content creators in the past. Because you're a niche within a niche, and you'll find it easier to grow your content than immediately starting out with general MMO stuff. However, you will have a harder time branching out later on. The downsides are game-specific MMO channels have limited view potential. If the game dies, so does your channel. And people that know your channel for that game will complain if you try to cover any new games.
If you're hyper-specialized, you're tying your success to someone else's success, which is always like a risky endeavor. I mean, I always think of, say, there's this Red Dead Online tips channel. First of all, rest in peace, Red Dead Online. You almost had something. That first year or two was insane potential, and now you see these channels, and every week they're just putting out these very sad, like, here's what to do this week in Red Dead Online, and it's, spoiler alert, not a lot. I think going for the general approach which you've done is safer in terms of your own longevity. And like you say, there is definitely that potential for people to disregard your opinion because you haven't, you know, tied yourself down. You haven't married a game per se. Having an authoritative British accent does help. So I can recommend that.
A creator that is sticking to a specific game to make a transition over to another game. I've seen this happen repeatedly in games like Overwatch, where YouTubers that average 20, 40, 50,000 views for their videos, and they're averaging 2,000 to 3,000 viewers for their streams. they get bored. When they decide that they want to transition over to another game, their viewership drops by 90%.
Yep.
That we've seen people, thousands, drop down to just hundreds of viewers.
Yep.
That is the unfortunate state of, I guess, being like a content creator that focuses on one single specific game. Because if you ever do make that transition, you're essentially killing your career if you pursue it as a career. With regards to having it as more of a general channel, you're also severely limiting yourself, because at the same time, people don't necessarily view you as an authority, and therefore they don't choose to go to you for information.
I think actually
it is super interesting as a content creator, but thankfully I don't do this as a full-time job. Would be fun, but yeah, it's just a super interesting problem, right? It's either I specialize in something, make that channel big, but then move on to a different thing, but is generalized, which I lose a lot of my viewers, which either I have to grow from zero, or you stick with you continue to specialize on that one thing. I think if you are not emotionally connected to any specific game, a lot at least, but I don't think you can also be invested in your community a lot. The best way for someone who is like this is probably to specialize in a wide variety of games as much as possible, make as much content as possible, or at least good content, still good content, not like spam and like quantity over quality, still quality content of that game, but you spread out, right, to a variety of games, either games that start to grow, start to get games maybe even with recent updates, so it's pretty much free content for you to make games around that. But at the end of the day, you probably won't build a tightly knit community with you, because you're just the guy about that game. And maybe you use your voice and not even like a picture, like a face, and doesn't really matter, because I don't think you can. Like, it's difficult. It's just like, if you are someone who I think doesn't really care about building a community and just wants to make content around something because you like content, but you also want money, and that's your job, and you want to make this your job, then I think it's probably the best to just specialize in a variety of channels, which is something I truly wouldn't want. I probably could, but I truly wouldn't want it, because I want to have a community. I want to have like people that I know that are coming back.
That is fine and all, but where is Donut?
Nice meme, Hyperwork. But yeah, I just like having the community, exactly like Hyperwork right now. Like, I enjoy seeing him, and it's fun. But if I would have a variety of like 4 channels about, I don't know, Minecraft, Fortnite, Path of Exile, and Terraria, and it has nothing to do with me specifically, and I still have 100,000 subs on each of those channels, I can probably make a living off that. It would be a full-time job. I make content all day. They are probably always getting updated. You can always make some news things. Like, it's free content at that point, right? Like, it's free. You can constantly make something. But at the end of the day, you have built nothing. Nothing. I'm 90% sure you have built nothing. Like, you will have a Twitter with like 400 followers or something. I mean, I have 400 followers right now, but I feel like you're not building something with your community. You're just the guy who makes content of that game, but just, you know what I mean? Anyways, gonna stop ramble. We're halfway through this video, by the way, not even.
Actually, contrary to popular belief, most of us started as specialist YouTubers and then kind of branched off to other things, and I think that just makes the most logical sense, because just like with MMOs, like you're saying, Another Life, many of us spend so much time in one particular game, so then we become like, okay, let's talk about this game. And like for me, for example, I started the channel in large part on the series based on Galaxies. That was because Galaxies was the game that I had the most experience with, and so then I realized like, oh, okay, like there's actually other ones that I could talk about and other games that I could then cover. Not a lot of MMO players actually play a lot of MMOs. As weird as that sounds, throughout my entire life, I've actually can count on my hands the amount of friends I've had that actually play all the MMOs. Like, they play everything. And so I think that being a content creator in one particular game, there's a lot of benefit from it. Like you said, you get to look more into the nuance of things versus like what we do, which is sometimes less practical for some people. It's harder to do, harder to be a known entity. and then be taken seriously in a bunch of different games. I think that's just really hard to do. Beyond playing a bunch of games, just knowing enough to even be able to approach all of these different games and talk about them in a good way.
Yeah, you just actually need just a wide variety of game knowledge, right? Like Nerd Slayer definitely has, like, it just shows that he knows a lot about different games. Same as Josh. He plays a lot of different games and you just realize it. He definitely has his MMO niche and he definitely has a genre that he really enjoys. But it's just, yeah, you just realize they are knowledgeable about something. And I quickly realize sometimes when talking either to some people or online, well, writing to some people or maybe in chat, when you quickly realize, oh, you are only playing these types of games, or like this one subgenre of a big genre, you instantly realize this, and that person wouldn't be able to make a channel or videos like Nerd Slayer or Josh Strife Hayes. They couldn't. They wouldn't be able to pop off because they don't have the knowledge about a variety of games, right? Or at least they could make the videos and put them out and blah 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 and get probably a couple views. But at the end of the day, I think it just comes across as like, it's just I mean, literally, what about my channel? Because that's literally the content I do. And I personally think I could definitely play a wider variety of games. But in general, I feel like I played a lot of different games and a lot of different genres, that I have some general knowledge about a wide variety of things. So I can just look at a game and be like, okay, I have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I can see that. I know how this works and blah, blah, blah. Like, because I just like playing video games, you know? I don't like to play that one genre and just hyper focus on Metroidvanias. I just like to play a variety of genres, right? As it's just, spoiler, I like video games. I know, it's a shocker right there.
If you want to be seen as a professional content creator with a certain amount of authority, then you would focus on a specific game. But the downside of that is not only is your success tied to the success of that game, but also your opinion of that game is incredibly jaded because you've never experienced another MMO in detail at all, so you have nothing to compare it to. You also can never ever satisfy a viewer if you are a general MMO channel, because you are never able to put in the hours, the blood, sweat, tears, dedication that a player that spent hours and hours and hours on that game. You will never be on their level. You will never have their opinion. You will never be able to give them the confirmation bias that they're looking for because you simply don't have the experience.
In general, most players just play the game a little bit. They might play for a little while, but they might even play multiple MMOs at the same time. So going like super deep into the analysis, that's kind of not exactly what the majority of people are really looking for, right? You want to know, oh, this is how the systems work, right? This is what you can do. These are all the different game modes that you can participate in. That really is the bread and butter of the kind of MMO demographic for sure. In terms of pitfalls, I think you're absolutely right.
For a general guy, yes, I think so. It is from Durna that life spews from. True viral. That's so true, dude. But yeah, I can definitely see that. Like, if you're a general guy, you don't go to the general guy for a specific thing, right? You want the general guy to tell you about general things about the one video game. Even if it's in a long form content. Like, it's a little bit weird to think about it, but I think sometimes watching a 1 hour video about a game is still better than trying to play it yourself for 1 or 2 or 3 hours, but the person the video was from played 8 hours, but you watch 1 hour of it, and he said game bad, or the certain aspect that he didn't enjoy, and you listen to that and you're like, oh, these are the aspects he didn't like. These aspects sounded fun for me though. Then, like, that hour wasn't wasted. You just pretty much prepared yourself better for this game. But at the end of the day, if it's a free game, just try it out, lol.
The big pitfall with general is that you're not going to be seen as this like, oh, mega, yes, this guy knows exactly what he's talking about. And that might actually cause players to potentially dismiss your opinion within that community that you're speaking to.
It's inevitable that that game pretty much links to your success in a lot of ways. When you're looking at just MMOs in general, when you're focusing on a genre, you've got a lot of room to move in, right? And also you can do things like you can step out, I guess, with the NFT situation. That was a really good example of you're talking about something different, but it does still relate to that. So there are those opportunities. So obviously I'm focusing on different genres. That gives me a lot of room to breathe. And I did actually think to myself, you know, what does actually make me the authority, or what makes my content, you know, what will make my content worth watching, and why should somebody watch me?
Final Fantasy 14 pays my bills. I play MMORPGs as a genre. That's what I make content for. I play other games. I like mobile games. I like shooters. I like racing games. But MMORPGs are what I'm known for. If we're just talking analytics, Final Fantasy 14 pays overwhelmingly for my mortgage. I still play Guild Wars at least one day a week on stream, and I'm trying to grow that because A, I think it's important for my own well-being as a gamer and as somebody to have broad things, and B, what happens if Final Fantasy 14 has a down cycle? I have everything tied to Final Fantasy, and so that's really scary because they do have down cycles, and you see them coming. That's the worst part, is as somebody who becomes an expert in either one game or in one genre of that game, if you're tied to PvP seasons or a raid, you know when the content's coming, maybe even before the people watching. You know, I'm making this video, and this is going to be the last big thing that people look forward to for 3 months, 4 months, 8 months, or in some games, they have unpredictable patch cycles. I have no idea how people make full-time livings out of games that don't have a predictable patch cycle.
I mean, by
Didn't I just say this 4 seconds ago about Terraria? Did he just flex? Oh, sorry. Not that flex, I'm sorry. I don't know. What about the mortgage? Oh, like, it makes sense, right? He probably makes a good amount of living, but it pays towards my mortgage. I mean, it could be just $400 every month more that he doesn't need, and he's like, go to my mortgage, you know? Just, yeah, makes sense, right? If you have, if you don't have the money that you need to spend right now for the month, and it's a little bit of a leftover, yeah, use it for your mortgage. I don't know.
catering to a very specific niche, it might be more easy to grow as a small creator compared to trying to tackle everything at once when you're brand new and you know, like nobody really knows who you are yet. So I have the benefit of the Final Fantasy franchise, which seems to have quite a bit of longevity. So I do have a little bit of job security from that aspect. I'm also associated with World of Warcraft, and being associated with a particular developer can help because you might be able to follow where the player base goes. As a general content creator, like general MMO content creator, that you are not able to see all the nuance of a particular game. But if you spent more of your free time playing not Guild Wars or not RuneScape, then you would be able to learn more about particular MMOs.
Okay, I'm going to edit that out, but how dare you? We're not here to take cheap pot shots at each other. This is not... This can lead to both types of channels wanting what the other has. The general channels want the admiration and respect from the fan base that's...
Josh felt attacked, dude. Just savage. Just savage. Just killing a guy like this live. Just live in a recording.
Command, and the specialist channels want the multi-game appeal and broad channel
I
safety.
mean, didn't we just talk about the toxicity of in games? Oh, sorry, that was part 2. Never mind, you know. There you go. That was the toxicity, you know.
Of a general channel. But how can you do both? One trick is to specialize into a single aspect of the genre, so you're still niching down, but not to a specific game. I have my worst MMO ever series, a light-hearted entertainment-focused journey to play all of the MMOs in a quest to find the worst. It started only playing truly terrible MMOs and has since included some decent ones for reasons I'll explain more in point 5. The Lazy Peon has his first impression videos where he gives a broad overview of the major mechanics in many games and discusses the pros and cons. Kira TV focuses on Kickstarter scams or dodgy integration of crypto within MMOs and then makes longer-form essays on why specific games failed. So many general MMO channels still cover multiple games, but now through a slightly more specialized lens without limiting themselves to a single game. But ultimately, there is simply not enough time to become an expert on every single MMO, so a general channel will always be limited in the depth of knowledge, while a specific channel will be limited in its scope of audience. Sometimes people ask me, because I'm a general MMO channel, why haven't I completed every single MMO ever made to endgame? And whenever I'm asked that, I'm reminded of a fantastic line from the TV show NCIS, a show famous for not understanding how technology works. If you haven't seen it, it's the show with the infamous hacking scene, 2 people trying to type on the same keyboard at the same time to out-hack the hacker. In Season 8, Episode 16, a detective meets a famous gamer. He's expecting a socially inept guy and gets an attractive early 20s woman. The detective says, wait a second, you're Max Destructo. You hold the high score in practically every online game. That is, of course, absurd. No one person could hold every high score. In a similar vein, even if a general MMO content creator wanted to finish every MMO, they couldn't do it while also producing the quantity of content the YouTube algorithm demands. And this brings us to point 4, the sheer amount of time finishing an MMO takes compared to finishing almost any other game. MMOs are thousands of hours long, and playtime will vary massively from player to player, but we can use the website How Long...
For example, if I just say I make... Like, just think about it. Path of Exile takes me... Okay, I have to say, there's a certain boss in the game that I see as the final boss for me personally, because it's a very difficult fight. I was never able to do it for... I was not able to do it for some time. But in the last league, it took me, I think, I would probably say around 100 hours for my very first character to get to that boss and defeat it. 100+ hours. Any single player game gets shit on from that number. Beside Elden Ring, maybe. But most single player games get shit on, right? Like, Voidor, let's go, Mitch! Hollow Knight render, anyways. So, yeah. Like, it's insane, right? The sheer amount of time that Path of Exile will take to quote-unquote finish is ridiculous. So I can see that. Keep in mind, I'm not an MMO player. I'm watching a video about MMOs, even though I don't play MMOs, which is literally what they have been talking about. Well, not really. I'm not even an MMO player, but I like watching MMO content. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe I just also like to watch these people talk about this stuff, because it's just interesting to see about the aspects of a game that you probably wouldn't play, but it's interesting to hear about it. Like Realm of the Mad God or whatever it's called, right? So I think a quite popular game on Steam. Would I want to play it? I don't think so, but I enjoyed watching the video in the background on my second monitor while I played Path of Exile. So, for 100 hours. Anyways.
Beat for an extremely general overview. The average completion time for Final Fantasy XIV, this is just the main story, ranges from 105 hours to 1,531.
That website is called How Long to Beat. Can highly recommend it. It's pretty good.
Hours from a poll of around 300 people. Guild Wars 2 clocks in at between 241 and 1,500 hours, and The Elder Scrolls Online is listed as between 42 and 348, depending on your efficiency. These aren't completionist times, nowhere near. Indeed, very few people will ever 100% complete an MMO. Achievements such as God walking amongst mere mortals in Guild Wars 1, or a maxed hardcore Iron Man in old school RuneScape are extremely rare, and you would not and should not expect a reviewer to achieve these types of things before reviewing a game. The question is, how much time is required, and how many other games could you review in that same time? And this links heavily back to when mainstream gaming media chooses to avoid even attempting to review MMOs. Now, whenever I ask around, the number 100 hours gets thrown around a lot, probably because it's a nice round number, it's the first triple-digit number, and many would agree that after 100 hours, even if you haven't finished the entire game, you will have enough information to make an informed review. And while 100 hours may sound like a long time to the average person, the time sink nature of MMOs can warp what a hardcore MMO player considers a long time. But let's have a look at how many other games you could review and how much alternative content you could produce in 100 hours. I have a second YouTube channel called Josh Strife Plays, where I replay and review older video games. Let's take a random sample of 10. Castlevania Symphony of the Night took me 9 hours to beat. Devil May Cry 1 took 7. Silent Hill 1 took 8. Tomb Raider took 9. Baldur's Gate took 22. Armored Core was 8. Medieval took 8. Soul Reaver took 9. Tenchu took 9. And Rayman took 7. Combined, this is 96 hours. So when someone says to me they expect me to invest 100 hours into a single MMO before my review is considered valid, as a content creator, you could instead replay 10 of the most iconic video games of all time and make review videos on them which would appeal to a much broader audience. As a content creator, you have to be aware of how much time...
Amazing comparison, or amazing argument. I enjoyed Realm of the Mad God. To extent it gets boring after a while, probably because you pay real money to get really good stuff and finally reach end game. Oh, it's pay to win? Never mind, fuck this. I didn't even realize that aspect anymore. I completely forgot about it. Isn't it Realm of the Mad God like you die and lose all your gear, which is absolutely disgusting? I say and play Minecraft every Sunday.
You're spending making content. If you were to make a 100-hour review of the 5 big MMORPGs, that's 500 collective hours put into 5 videos. You could make 50 smaller videos in that time. That's almost 1 video a week for an entire year, which would be much more efficient to grow a brand new YouTube channel. YouTube requires constant content, and putting hundreds of hours into gathering footage for a video is a luxury very few smaller creators have. As Ginger Prime puts it, MMOs are not only tribal by game design, but by business model. They're designed to create that in-group and then ask for both time and money from the in-group, from either subscriptions or an in-game cash shop. And if paying a lot of money over a long period of time is also required to reach the minimum requirement to review something, many simply won't bother. For older MMOs, that can become an almost impossible challenge for a new content creator. If the game has 10, 15, or even 20 years worth of content and you approach it as a brand new content creator and you're expected to play through all of it before making a video, you're spending months, potentially years of your time to gather data and increase your experience to make a video that might not even be relevant by the time you get to making it. The content may have changed, or the YouTube and Twitch viewer base may have dropped off, meaning your time investment into what could have been your career can be lost.
I think that it's very much about how you present the review. Like, you can have a review, you can have a breakdown, you can have a first impressions, etc. So if you play a game and it's your first impressions of the game, other people can kind of take that as, hey, this is their first impressions of the game, and that's really all there is to it. And I think it's also about how you compartmentalize different parts of reviews. So, like, for example, whenever you're looking at, let's say, Final Fantasy, you can give a review of, I don't know, maybe Palace of the Dead, or maybe a certain type of raid, or, you know, like All the Heavensward MSQ or something like that. You can give a compartmentalized review of that without necessarily making a general statement on the quality of the game as a whole. Like, obviously it all ties into that, but those things can exist independently. So I think that's one way that you can review the game, but I think that it's just about how somebody frames the review of the game.
If you're 20 hours...
You could, for example, if I would say, yes, I will make Final Fantasy XIV content, I'm guessing Final Fantasy XIV has acts, story parts, correct? I don't know if anyone here who plays. I think Pyro actually might have played. I know Wolfry or Wolf played Final Fantasy. Either way, Marcus Ifint in chat actively plays Final Fantasy XIV, or at least has. Like, that would be a way on how to approach some sort of like review, right? You make review of Final Fantasy XIV Part 1 or like Act 1, for example, and then just mention, I break down the story in this many aspects because this just seems good, or I just looked at a story overview for Final Fantasy XIV and it said it had 14 chapters or whatever. I make 14 videos, right? That would probably be good. It's also like, it spreads out your content creation over 14 weeks potentially, which is amazing because that's one video a week, which is good for the algorithm.
In, and this is the quest that you're on, you haven't experienced X, Y, and Z, and because you haven't experienced those things, you don't know that, oh, at Z, it gets really bad, it gets terrible, so of course he loves it, of course he's having a great time right now, and of course usually people will tell you that in the comments, that you haven't reached the good part or you haven't reached the bad part yet. But what's important is just to temper expectations, I think, for how much time you have put in. And for larger publications like IGN and stuff, it obviously it will never make sense for them to really cover MMOs, because at the point where you're putting in the man hours to fully cover, like do a full review of like beat the game, similar to how you would say you beat God of War, and now, well, I'm going to talk about the entirety of the game. I have this large article here. If you did a similar thing with World of Warcraft, it would take that person multiple years, and if you're having that person on payroll for multiple years just to get one article, that's never going to be worth it.
I would say 10 hours is probably a good baseline, and it should be. Like, 10 hours of gameplay in an MMO should introduce you to most of, if not all, of the systems that you're going to see as you progress through this game. But
10 hours. I'm thinking of Path of Exile right now. If you are good at Path of Exile or good in the genre, 10 hours may push you probably to Act 7, maybe Act 8, I think. Trader Lord time. Let's go! But still, yeah, like I said, I like how Josh does his videos. He plays 8 or so hours. He says this is the hours he played. That is my opinion on the game. If it's fun, it's cool. If it has bad aspects, he will mention it. If it has good aspects, he will mention it, right? That's it. That's just a good way, I think, of looking at any game. For example, thanks to actually partially Josh Drive Hayes and his show, Worst MMOs Ever, I actually see anime as that. If I do not enjoy the first episode at all, like truly the first 20 minutes of this anime is not enjoyable, like at all, like I'm literally falling asleep maybe, I will not continue watching it. If the first episode was interesting, I might watch the second one. And if that one seems also interesting, I might watch the third one. But if it starts dropping off more and more, and I was more lukewarm since a couple episodes, I will stop watching it. That literally happened now with Ruby the anime just yesterday, because I watched the episode 5, and I'm literally not enjoying myself. Nicely said. Not because it's an anime. I like the art style. It's just the story is just garbage. Because it's also not the original story of the Rooster Teeth production. Anyways. But I also just watched Dorohedoro. And I am so close not wanting to watch more after like 3 or 4 episodes. So it's the same with games, right? If you just, as mentioned multiple times now, in this stream, if you don't enjoy a game after a certain amount of time, whatever that is for you, yeah, maybe stop playing. It's fine. I mean, after some time shouldn't be 10 minutes, but maybe it also shouldn't be 10 hours. Depends on like whatever is good for you, right? If you're like, I have 3 hours every Sunday to play a video game, and if the game doesn't hold my attention after 3 hours, sure. Absolutely fair, fair assumption. You have a certain amount of time every Sunday, and you might not want to play a game that you potentially don't enjoy after 3 hours, and then play another 3 hours and don't enjoy that, and play another 3 hours to maybe enjoy it. You just wasted 3 Sundays pretty much. I totally understand that, yeah.
For some reason, MMOs have this thing now where the first 10 hours very rarely represent what the entire game is. And this is where you need to play 50 hours, 100 hours. If the game completely shifts after the first 10 hours, the review's good for no one anyway.
You can put 0 minutes into it as long as you set the context of like, hey, I just booted up the game and here's my initial thought. Because essentially the people will look for reviews to validate their own feelings, in that regards. So I wouldn't put an hour limit on it. I think that when it comes down to it, like 1,000 hours makes you considered an expert in something of that nature. So if they're saying 100 hours is going to qualify for review, so it's like I'm 1/10 of an expert on the subject. For an MMORPG, I think it's not about the time. It's about the context of what you've experienced, what you maybe have experienced before, where you're coming from, and then essentially kind of talking about what systems you've touched and engaged with. Let's say you did 10 hours in an MMO and you wanted to make a video about it. Well, I think that essentially then the video should be then asking the question, am I willing to invest another 10 hours or another 30 hours into the game, right? Because that's essentially what I would be curious about and be looking for.
The criticisms you're going to have in the first 10 hours are probably going to be the same criticisms you can have later, but you might have a different perspective on what is a totally different end game, which most MMOs are. So I don't think you can't have an opinion if you don't spend 100 hours. I think in general, your opinion's probably going to help more people because they're going to quit or experience the same things in the same time that you did. And most people are just looking for, can I have fun in this game now? Not, can I invest 100 hours and then have fun?
Exactly. Yeah. That's all it is, right? Also, by the way, good job for Trader Lord. But yeah, that's all it is, right? Like, did this person enjoy the game in 8 hours? No, he didn't. Okay, then. Depending on, of course, not like literally seeing as black and white. This guy didn't enjoy it, then I also don't enjoy it. No, it's more like, what did that person do in this MMO? And the person needs to actually tell what he actually did, or she. And if that doesn't sound fun, no matter what the opinion of the content creator is, but if it doesn't sound fun, what the content creator explains what he did in the MMO, then it probably also isn't for you, right? And then the amount of time frame only tells you, 2 hours in, I was introduced into that system. It did this and that. And if you're like, oh, that sounds pretty interesting, but 2 hours in is quite a long time. But if he says, that's right out of the gate of the game, I did this and that, and I was able to have access to this and that, and you're like, wow, that sounds amazing. Right out of the gate, like, I start the game and have access to this. That sounds epic. Like, time. And I don't know, I hope you understand what I mean. Let's go left, poggers, dude.
Or fundamental gameplay, movement, combat, audio-visual feedback, or responsiveness so much in the first 2 hours that no amount of well-designed endgame would be enough to make the game fun, then you can review it for as little as those hours, but call it a first impression. Ideally aim for 4 to 8 hours with the first impressions, and if you're still enjoying the game, push through to the endgame for a full review. MMOs have many different parts of them. The leveling process may be mostly irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, but this is also where the most people quit, so critique here is certainly valid. You need to break up the review process into multiple videos for different parts of the experience, or do one big 45-minute review covering it as a whole. There's no set amount of hours, but if you're reviewing games purely for your job, it's only really doable with MMOs if you take the first impression route, as you can't really put hundreds of hours into each video for each game.
Obviously,
Lazy Peon literally just said what I said maybe about 10 minutes ago, about if you, for example, if the game has a poggers, dude, fudge. You okay, Byro? Also, yes, kiss a homie, bro. Fish a homie. Dude, Hydra source split. And if we're not talking about Diablo 2, shut up. There you go. Here you go, dude. Fish a homie, dude. Yeah, literally, Lazy Peon just said what I said, right? Break down the review into multiple parts potentially, just like how I said break down the story of Final Fantasy XIV because it probably has parts, because it's a story game where it's very focused on stories. So yeah, break up the review or reviews into those parts of the story of the game. That's it.
It very much depends on the game, but there's something, say like New World, you could get to level 30 in that game and be like, I've seen it all. I don't need to get to level 60. This is pretty much it, and I cannot imagine what they could possibly pull out of the hat at level 60 that would suddenly 180 my opinion of everything up until that point. So I feel like, how much does this game respect your time, and then give it that equal level of respect? Because if a game is 100 hours, but it's 100 hours of incredible fun that you don't want to put down, you're just going to do that and not think twice about it. Versus if you're like not looking forward to playing a video game, which is a entertaining medium, I feel like you don't really need to play more than that to kind of have your whole opinion on it. And I know some people argue, well, after 100 hours it gets really good, but it's like, well, maybe it should get good 100 hours earlier. I think that's a flawed argument.
Unfortunately,
I was just thinking of Path of Exile, of does the game change drastically from the first just story compared to endgame? Does Path of Exile change? I don't think it drastically changes. It is still the same genre. It is still instance-based. That doesn't change. It still has bosses in every area, or map, or whatever you want to call it. There are big baddies that you fought through the story, and you will find big baddies in endgame, because there's an endgame story. It just scales, just like anything that you experienced in the story, just way more, right? So you will see hordes of mobs potentially way later in endgame that you couldn't have imagined in the first hour. But at the end of the day, it's just you click button, you kill mob, you get loot. And if you do this to one mob, 5 mobs, 1,000 mobs per area, doesn't, like, yes, it does change, but it's still kind of the same. So, yeah. So, for example, if you don't enjoy that aspect in the first 3 hours, that will most likely not change 100 hours in. Yeah. Or 50 or 25.
Unfortunately, you run into the issue where older games, first and foremost, require a lot more investment in terms of time, in terms of resources to actually learn, to actually get through the content. I went back into Rapples, I went back into RF Online. Getting from level 1 to level 20 took, I don't know, 15, 20 hours. And Rapples, as an example, the level cap is over 300.
Jesus.
And they tell you that it takes about 1,000 hours to even get the end game. To put in 100 hours into Rapples is the tutorial. So these old games, it doesn't matter if you put 100 hours into them, you are not going to please the people that are still actively playing them.
I'm glad that you make the distinction, because it probably is much easier for someone who's just only focused on one to then expect them to have like the super deep dive. Like a content creator I follow on Guild Wars 2 is Mighty Teapot, and Mighty Teapot pretty much only does Guild Wars 2, maybe some New World, but like only Guild Wars 2. And so you can pretty much guarantee that Mighty Teapot knows everything about Guild Wars 2. So like you're never going to miss anything. But it's going to take Mighty Teapot some time to come up with all of this stuff, because they primarily stream, they don't make as many YouTube videos, the guides take more time, and so on and so forth. So I would say that with them, you would expect them to put as much time as possible, and then the kind of when it's ready approach. For starters, your point is the exact point that usually I make to people, which is like, I use KOTOR 1 or KOTOR 2 as an example, which at most those games take 15, 20 hours. So like these games are considered like people's favorite games, and it's like these games do not take very long to beat at all. And so when you compare them to just WoW Classic, which on average took players anywhere between 200 and 400 hours to reach max level, which is honestly like not that much if you think about it in an MMO grinder context, but in a large gaming context, it's an insane amount. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
that's like the amount of hours you put in a shooter, you know, that you play for a year or two or so on and so forth. And so
100 hours is just incredibly unrealistic. I do
Yeah.
understand where general viewers would come from to expect a content creator to put 100 hours into a game, but realistically, that's not going to happen. And I think that specifically MMORPGs are supposed to replicate different people's lives, and so have so many different paths to take that it's almost impossible to cover that. Just looking at character creation, a lot of games have multiple different starting paths, and for a viewer to expect a reviewer to experience multiple different class paths before even playing the game in order to give a valid opinion is just completely unrealistic.
I didn't even think of that aspect, but that's a good point. Imagine a proper Path of Exile review. You're fucked. You are literally fucked. Because there are classes and subclasses in Path of Exile. But because it's so open to do whatever you want, you can take every subclass and probably make, I would probably say, 3 good builds out of it. Out of every subclass. I actually wrote it, I think, in a script recently, and I'm not quite sure if I'm correct. I think there are in total 17 or 19 subclasses, or classes in general in Path of Exile. Now, times 3 that, because you can probably make 3 different builds with each subclass in Path of Exile. And probably way more, right? But we're talking about 3 really good ones. First of all, you have to figure those out, but maybe even if you play a build guide, whatever, like you have to still play them. That will take you... Fuck, if you even just take 50 hours per build, times... What is the number right now? 50 times 75? I don't know what number I just came up with. Like, it's insane. Like, have fun, reviewer. It's like insane. It's impossible. So, yeah, no. F that.
Depend on the creator and what type of review that you want to create. For example, I don't think every MMO review needs to talk about raiding. I don't think every MMO review needs to talk about PvP. Right? I think you could bring that up, right? You can say, oh yeah, this is a game where you can kind of give a brief overview. But I don't think you necessarily need to go into a deep dive about this. But I think there are certainly different types of review that may not require as much of this extreme time investment to get a proper grip on, I'd say.
I mean, yeah, I'll stand by that. I don't think that's viable. Okay, and I think as well, as long as you have that communication as a creator between you and your audience to be realistic, so they understand that there has to be a certain amount of, there has to be a limit. 100 hours until it gets good, or until you can really do a full review. Okay, great. I guarantee that if you were to compare that as well to, let's say you spend 20 hours. Now, personally, I've spent Biomutant was about 20 hours, and even then I wasn't completely finished. But I made it quite clear that I spent a set amount of time in this game. Right, I was just very transparent about it. If somebody wants to say, well, it gets better after 100 hours, I'll be like, fine, okay, maybe it does. But then the question is, does everybody have 100 hours? I mean, maybe in the MMO space, but when it comes to more general games, do people really have that time within a week to, or even a month? Most of the people that watch my videos are most likely working full-time jobs.
Taking on the MMORPG, this is a lot closer to trying to review a television show or a podcast series or like Critical Role or an anime, something that is episodic. By that very nature, that also means
anime
a living document. So I think it's about context. And so if you are trying to get into Final Fantasy XIV and you go ask 10 people that play it, what's the biggest parts of Final Fantasy XIV? They say, the story. Then I think you need to clear the story. And I don't really care if it takes you 100 hours or 300 hours or 60 hours. I don't care. You need to finish the reason you're there. These are the things I'm looking for. There have been people that have reviewed MMOs in the past and been yelled at. I think you're even talking to some of those people. And I think it's because they've come into them and said, are they good or are they bad? And those people, I didn't actually have a problem with their opinion if they had made their opinion very contextually clear.
For example, in Final Fantasy XIV, it's well known that it can take you hundreds of hours.
That's a good point, right? That's a very good point. It depends on how you approach the game. Like if you, for example, say, I want to approach the game as a mage, and you play the game as a mage and say, this was my opinion of the game as a mage, then that is your opinion of the game as a mage, right? Or in this case with Final Fantasy XIV, if you jump into the game and you're like, I want to experience the story that I heard so much about, well, then you need to finish the story. That's it. And then you can give your opinion on the game focused maybe on the story, or even just the story, right? If you're like, I don't care about the game, but I just want to make a review of the story of Final Fantasy XIV, would probably be an interesting review for Final Fantasy 14 players. Maybe not so much for others. Who knows?
To reach endgame as a new person.
Unless you frame it as a movie kind of review, where you pretty much cut together all the cutscenes. Now that would be also quite interesting.
Who is wanting to review Final Fantasy 14, provided you're not using the skip or anything, which is, by the way, illegal, then you would only be able to review the story, really, and maybe a little bit of the limited low-level content. I mean, at low levels, your job is not going to feel anything like it would at max level. So basically, if someone wants to review Final Fantasy 14, they can't until they've gone through hundreds of hours of story and not done any skips and read all of the dialogue and watched all of the cutscenes. And only after they finish all of it, all the main story, and they maybe do their first dungeon or trial, then they're allowed to give a review on Final Fantasy 14.
But what if you could put hundreds or thousands of hours and lots of money into a video? Well, then you'd hope it would be a video which remains relevant for a long time, what we call evergreen content on YouTube. Unfortunately, because MMOs are being constantly updated, very little content created for them can be evergreen, especially if that content is a build or a guide video, which can change when the next patch or expansion comes out. And this causes a strange feedback loop, where the most efficient type of content to make as a creator is also seen as the lowest effort by the audience. And this is part 5, the time-sensitive nature of MMORPG content pushing creators to release content before it is ready, or to make repetitive videos. If you spend 100 hours making a thorough, in-depth review of an MMO, it will remain at the top of the YouTube results until an update or patch comes out and someone else makes another video with that update or patch number in the title, because that's what people are now searching for, and that's what the algorithm will now serve up. This links back to the viability of making one MMO video in the same time that you could make 10 older game reviews. The MMO will change and your video will become obsolete, but the older games will not. It is almost impossible to make evergreen content on any MMO, because any living MMO is itself not evergreen. Ironically, the only way to create evergreen content for an MMO is to make a video about a dead or dying one, because they are the only ones which don't get updated and don't have huge competitions for video search results. And then when your review or guide becomes old, which can happen in months on YouTube, it will fall down the video search results, so you'll need to remake it. And if you're putting in
literally everything has to, like, all that was said is literally Path of Exile every 3 months, because the number changes. 3.14, 3.15, 3.16, 3.17, 3.18. Now we're coming up to 3.19. So every guide to a Fireball build, whoever plays Fireball in 2022 anyways, like, yeah, if someone made a Fireball build and it's 3.18, so it's current league, it will die the moment someone makes a 3.19 Fireball build. Literally that problem. You have to, like, keep up. On the other side, that's pretty cool because it's free content you can make, but it's also content you kind of have to do to either stay relevant or to get views. So it's like, it's a problem, because his videos, like, some people will probably always watch his Realm of the Mad God video because it's just that video, you know what I mean? It's not about a specific update or something. So there's that.
Hundreds of hours for every video, you simply won't be able to put out enough guides for enough games within the time frame you have. This means MMO content creators know that the best type of content for audience engagement and search engine optimization are not videos locked to a specific build or version of any given game, but instead are videos which are being searched for right now, titles which people will Google, titles like best MMO in current year, top 10 MMOs to play in current year, should you play, game name here, best class build, fastest experience, fastest gold. And these types of videos are quick to make because you don't even need to be an expert on the game to know the method. You can usually find it on the wiki, and you can easily remake these videos every few months to remain relevant within the search results. You could, of course, be a general MMO creator and make content for the left.
Quick question. The problem is when the game gets updated every few months, like in Path of Exile, the strategy might drastically change. But to realize that, you probably have to play the game a lot. So it's the whole problem with speed again, right? You want to, like, quickly play to that point and realize, oh god, my guide that I made 3 months ago doesn't work anymore. It has completely changed, and then making a new video probably will take some time either way.
So no.
I mean, let's be honest, most Path of Exile content creators literally just turn on OBS, click on start recording, talking into the camera, and clicking turn off. They didn't even edit the beginning and end, let's be honest. Well, not all of them, but quite a bit.
Games, guides for games with very few players and very little competition, but the time investment is still the same, and you now know that the views will be abysmal because the player base simply isn't there. 10% of a million-person player base is still more than 100% of a 100-person player base. Players want content for their...
Yeah, something like this. I agree. I have no idea what he just said, but I agree. I can do math.
And the vast majority of the MMO player base is centralized on the big ones, such as World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars 2, and RuneScape. This means you want to make content for those games, but you don't want to invest your time in content you know will become irrelevant. This is also...
God, now I want to make a RuneScape video. Because, to be honest, in my honest opinion, old school RuneScape, and I'm sorry to anyone who I hurt right now with my opinion, going back to, I think, part 1, the gameplay looks like garbage. I hate the way you move in RuneScape. It's like these... It's like, you know, how do you say? It's like in Pokemon. I'm sorry to compare it to Pokemon, but it's the same kind of walking, right? It's like little... Like... Anyways, you probably will know what I'm talking about. I just hate it. It's like, Jesus Christ, no. But I know there's a new version of RuneScape, but I think not a lot of people play that, so... Anyways, I'm just talking out loud. I'm probably not going to make a video about RuneScape. I have literally 15 games in my Steam library I want to make videos of.
Had to include some newer, higher quality MMOs in my worst MMO ever series. From a purely analytical standpoint, there are simply more people searching for those games. And as a full-time content creator, I need to balance the truly awful games, which get viewed less, with the rage bait of including actually quite good games, which get viewed a lot more. Beyond this, there is another major factor. Being the first to report on a game or an update within a game often brings the most views, even if you're not the highest quality, because interest is at its maximum right then. In the gaming world, a week is a lifetime. A month is ancient history. If an event is newsworthy, it's being searched for right now. This means as a content creator, you are caught in a balancing act. The longer you work on a video, the higher quality it will be, but the subject itself is becoming less and less relevant by the hour, meaning even if it's high quality, it won't get as many views. When a new raid or a new dungeon is released into an MMO, people want a guide video instantly, and if you make the first guide video, you'll get views. If you make the best guide video a month later, you'll now be fighting an uphill battle against the YouTube algorithm because it already has that search result covered and that video already exists. The only way your video would have any value is if there is new information in your video that's not contained in the old one, in which case your video might become popular, and it will stay popular right up until there is another patch or another expansion and someone else puts 100 hours in and makes their video which overtakes yours. It is impossible to know how long your video will remain relevant for, which means it's impossible to know how much time is worth putting into it. The solution for a creator is to be both the first person to release a video and then the person releasing constant updates to always be at the top. From an audience point of view, however, this means they get a flood of very similar videos.
That's the same thing. It's like everybody complains on YouTube. They're like, man, I hate these pog faces every time. Everybody's got this surprised face for every YouTube thing. Oh my God, right? And everybody complains about it, but they just keep clicking on them. So you just keep having more of these videos. It's the feedback loop is there. And so it just keeps happening. I think this is kind of what I was saying before with like whenever I would make these WoW guide videos, I would put in a tremendous amount of effort how to min-max and figure out the most optimized way of farming some material in WoW, and it would get 20,000 views. And it's like, okay, but then if I made a video about how Burning Crusade is way better than the current expansion, that would have 250,000 views. It would be on the top of Reddit. Everybody would be saying true. I'd get way more subscribers. It would just be better for me in every single way. And I think that, again, the way that you reconcile those two things is that you have to look at what being a content creator means for you. Does this mean that you are just creating content that you feel is good for the algorithm, or are you creating something that you think is a creative endeavor in itself?
A really interesting balance between these two things, because ideally you're making a video that really is both, and for games that run long enough, which is a thing that I've seen with Warframe, you'll make a video that was, you know, a really long experience to make and that was, you know, very popular because a lot of work was put into it at the time, and because a lot of work was put into it, people see that and it gets shared around. And you can see that with some of my old full Warframe roster reviews. I talk about every single class in the game, why they're good, why they're bad, give them a grade. People love those videos. and I continue to make those. The original, well, all of them at this point are completely obsolete. As for just making like the shorter content that like gets more views, you should be making that. It's a balance between trying to do both. I very recently went through and I did every single Warframe individually in each different video, and that's been going on over the course of this year. Obviously, I've made videos about pretty much all of those Warframes before, but those videos became outdated, and this was me updating all of them. Some of those videos already have minor things that I would change about them, even though I just made them this year due to new content being released.
As a content creator, it is impossible.
I can very much see that in Warframe, right? Because it's such a wide variety of well, Warframes. And making a video of... It's kind of like pretty much making a tier list of something. I can easily see that as yeah, just super interesting. You are into Warframe. Why wouldn't you want to watch a video where one guy that seems like he knows about Warframe talk about every Warframe? It's like, it's a sick video if it's 20 minutes and he takes a minute or 30 seconds to just briefly talk about a certain Warframe or of every Warframe. It's like, yeah, let's go. It's just sounds like a good video, and you probably get very quickly just a broad overview of everything. I don't know, I'm just taking numbers out of my ass. I don't know, maybe the video is 50 minutes, I don't know.
To fully re-review a game from scratch, because as you said, everything's got a shelf life. If you're putting like 300-400 hours into a full review of the game every year, by time you've done that review, it's dead on arrival. I feel for content creators doing that, it is definitely much easier to make the initial long review where you've put 10, 20, 30 hours in, depending on what your kind of time frame budget.
Pyro? What the fuck? That's a...
You've done that review, it's dead on arrival. I feel for content creators doing that, it is definitely much easier to make the initial long review where you've put 10, 20, 30 hours in, depending on what your kind of time frame budget is for that. And then when there's an update, add your own update as a sort of addendum to your original review. As long as you're kind of referencing that initial review and saying, here's kind of like my patch notes for the game since the new patch notes, I feel that's the best way to do it. The people that are watching those videos are most often going to be people who play the game anyway. They're aware of what the current situation on that game is, or at least I feel that that's the way people view these videos.
The more time you spend on a video, the less views it will get. And that's just like, and I always would say like, well, if I want to put that time into this video because it's important to me, then I will. It's not low effort content. It's the content that people are asking for. And the content creator can sit down and say like, oh, I want to make something. I see people do this all the time. Like, and it's important. I'll make videos that I want to make that I know aren't going to do well on purpose because I wanted to make that video. I wanted that video to exist. The smart thing is to create stuff that people want, you know, because I mean, especially if you want it to be viewed. It's the concept when people are like, oh, you just posting that for the views. Who hits anything on a public space and hopes that no one sees it?
It depends really what you're chasing.
That's a good point, yeah. I pretty much have to... I pretty much did this briefly with just my channel, right, where I made a video about Lost Ark because I know it was kind of, I mean, at this point when I put it out, it was like 1 month after the release of Lost Ark, so it's like just said, you know, 1 month in gaming space is fucking ancient, so it was useless. But I still made it, so I can still link to it in the future if someone is like, did you play Lost Ark? Do you like Lost Ark? And I can just be like, check this video out I made about 3 months ago, right? And then I made now 2 videos about 2 indie games that got a fraction of the views, but I played them and I just wanted to make them because, yeah, they seemed keep in mind, I'm still a person that buys the game, plays them, and then do I like it or not? Right? I'm not just some genius guy. I just see a game on Steam and I'm like, this looks fun. And I had that I had these last 2 videos about these indie games where like, yeah, I had them on my wish list for a while, bought them, played them, didn't like them, and I was like, interesting. So I just wanted to make a video of it because that's what I wanted to make. That's what I wanted to do from the beginning, right?
You're trying to grow your channel as quickly as possible. You do videos.
I wanted to make a video of these games. Well, I didn't want to make a video of these games, and that's why I bought them. I bought the games because they seemed interesting, and obviously I decided, do I want to make a video of this before or after I play the game? Well, if I obviously have to decide before because I have to start recording, right? And right now my YouTube channel is about all the games pretty much that I buy on Steam, I will make a video of. Which is also a problem because I can't play a wide variety of games right now because every game I play, I kind of make a video of. I will very likely have to change this very soon and be very aggressive of the games that I cover. because it takes like, you know, multiple hours to make a video of just that one indie game that gets 5 views. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah. As mentioned, you know, it's views are very important, obviously, because I want the channel to grow. But also, yeah, maybe I just want to talk about the game that I enjoy or not enjoy and just really want to talk about it. Or for example, that really surprised me how good it was, or maybe surprised me how bad it was, even though it seems really good, right?
Because personally, I've never seen should you do X in Y year, or should you, you know, top 10 MMOs of 2022 when they're the same for the last 5 years. I don't see that being valuable, so I don't personally chase that. But I don't look down on people who do. I think just make the content you want to make, and if you know, people do want to watch those videos, so if you want to serve that market, that's totally fine. People have a perception about you, and they're going to stick with that regardless. You can spend, like I did, hundreds, thousands of hours looking into a game like New World, for example, and people who disagree with you will still just vehemently disagree with you anyway on the basis you don't know what you're talking about, despite being proven right, you know, time and time again. So I don't really look at it that way. I just do whatever I think's going to make sense, going to be fun for me, going to, you know, get views if that's what I'm going for, and then that's it. I don't really think more about it.
I think the should you play X game in X year approach is good because people often YouTube search and click on the latest videos for each MMO due to them all being constantly updated.
I think I would try and find the sort of happy medium that someone like you or Lazy Peon does, because I look up these guys, you know, I look up, oh, should you still play this game in this year? What's the best class, you know? But it's very transactional, and I usually don't stick around on that person's channel. I guess finding that medium of, I mean, it's never going to be evergreen, but to give it the longest shelf life possible. And I think, say, with your Worst MMO Ever series, that's, again, unless they somehow pull some crazy shit out of the hat and completely change the game that you review, and it's all of a sudden now a kart racer, I feel like that review is going to stay relevant for quite a long time, at least a year or two.
Well, I guess
I just realized one thing, partially because of not sticking around. That's quite interesting. For example, if you have a show or a series or something where you cover a wide variety of content and games, people will very likely, if they enjoy you as a person, how you edit, whatever, how you present information, you know, with edits, then they might stick around and subscribe. But if I, for example, am interested in, should you play Warframe in 2022? And I don't know which content creator it was right now, but we have a content creator, I think, I don't know which content creator was it right now from this group that plays a lot of Warframe. But if that content creator makes a video like, should you play Warframe in 2022? And I search for Warframe 2022 or whatever and see the first review, and that was his opinion on, is it worth playing? But then I look at his channel, and I always look at a channel before I subscribe, because that's what you should goddamn freaking do, and not just blindly click the subscribe button when the goddamn YouTuber says, click the subscribe button. Check the channel out, see what they make. Because if I maybe watch the video of, should you play Warframe 2022? And I'm like, this guy says yes. Let me favorite it right now, let me download it on Steam. But when I check out the channel and he only makes Warframe videos, then I might not be interested in subscribing if I at the end don't like Warframe. Know what I mean? Like, but if Josh Drive Hayes makes a video about Warframe and I like his opinions and his channel is all about a wide variety of games, I personally find that very interesting, so I will subscribe. You know what I mean?
at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, are you doing it
Keep in mind, we're talking about content creators in an MMO space, so that's what this video is about. So
for profit or as a passion? If you're doing it for a profit, you're going to target whatever has the highest volume of searches, both on YouTube and on Google. As a passion, then you're going to focus on covering whatever is most important to you. Content creators that do, is X game worth playing in X year, are doing that because they know people are searching for, is Black Desert fun in 2021? Is it fun in 2022? It might have been fun in 2021, but, you know, next year in 2023, is it still going to be relevant? But then you run into the issue of you're just making the same videos. Because as like Black Desert, as an example, they just released a new class, maybe a new region, but it's the same game. So yeah, you can push out, is Black Desert worth playing every year? But you're stifling your own creativity in doing so.
Sometimes you get stuck in just making one versus the other, and like
but on the other side, it might also be very interesting to have a content plan for the year. And if you know partially when stuff comes out, you're like, perfect, you know, Black Desert is being announced for in the next 3 months. I'm gonna play it in the next 3 months. I'm gonna play it for maybe a couple days, and then make my video about it. Perfect, you know. The video for that week is done. like in my mind, kind of, right? Like unless you make, I mean, I can't imagine you make constant videos every week about, is this game worth playing right now this year? I mean, can you? Are there so many online games that are popular that would be worth making a video of that and be worth playing? I can't imagine. Like, I mean, oof. I mean, I can come up with maybe 20 games, which would be 20 weeks of content every year potentially. It's like, I don't know. Anyways.
For example, I have made guide content and shorter type stuff before, but it never really resonated with me. So the evergreen style content was what I was most interested in. But you are right in that trying to make that about like current content ends up being incredibly difficult. For example, I made a video that talks about the successes and like tribulations and history of Final Fantasy XIV, but that is 2 expansions old already, and it feels completely outdated. Part of the difficulty I find with that just in general, and making evergreen content that isn't based on a historical timeline, is difficult in the sense that people don't, as much as you might think, want to be educated, and especially don't want to be educated in a heavy-handed way. That's kind of why some content creators like myself don't make as much evergreen content in a modern day context, because a lot of it relies on recognizing what's happening in the space and paying attention to the market. And while those are cool things and very interesting to me, to you, to I'm sure a lot of people watching or listening, it's not always the most popular and attractive thing to a general populace.
I've created a lot of short-term content that exists for a certain period of time and then immediately becomes obsolete within a couple of weeks. Things like mount guide videos for a mount that's just released, or a raid guide video for a raid that's just been released. Those videos do exceptionally well within the first week, but then after that, it drops off significantly. I think so long as you are able to create a video that's entertaining, tells a story, keeps the viewer engaged, then it almost doesn't matter what the shelf life of the video is, because it will continue to draw people in just on the way that you make the video.
Really hard to do this, particularly.
Yeah, no, in general, sorry, I had to actually think of my answer there. I was like, comparing it to other stuff. No, I think in general, yes, a story is always gonna sell better. I think the best way to compare this now is not even MMO space, but I think Corridor Crew, Corridor Digital second channel, Corridor Crew, which has a wide variety of content that I now kind of look through a little bit, and that pops up on my homepage on YouTube when I do look at it, or on my phone, when I just watch any video before I go to bed, because I'm a human being, and I'm also a millennial, so obviously I'm on my phone right before bed, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I just come across like videos about 3 years old, but because it's a story, it has a beginning and an end, it just still makes views, and it has 5 million views about Ren, one of the guys working there, saving a drone from a tree. The video is 3 years old, I think. And I'm like, but it's still interesting years afterwards because it's a story. So I agree. Yes, if you make a story or something like a red string through the video, it will very likely just work better, right? Funny I say this because this will be probably the next big video I release. Not the League review, but the game I am playing, and I'm playing, and I'm playing, and I have 4 gigabytes of footage recorded, and I'm still not finished. So it's gonna be fun editing that.
If you're a newer creator, it's really hard to make MMO content because, before you're in that position where you can start to talk about the more evergreen stuff, you need your 100 hours, right? You've got to have your 100 hours. So what are you making in your content creation in the first 100 hours? You could almost broaden this to almost a critique of content creation in general. I wouldn't say this is actually unique to MMOs as such. But yeah, it certainly becomes more extreme because of the fact it's not like, oh yeah, this video is going to be here forever. No, you're going to have to make it again, right? Good luck, right? And every time, even if you make something like a guide, well, the guide might change, right? There's going to be something new. There's going to be a new gold farming method. There's going to be a new balance patch. There's going to be a new this, that, and whatever, right? I think
I really dislike this in Path of Exile sometimes. Some content creators make videos about a guide on a specific league 2 days after the league. I know there are some very smart people, and I'm sure certain leagues in Path of Exile aren't going to be that complex. But 48 hours after the league releases, and you make a freaking, even a week in, and you make a video on how to really use the league content? A week? I don't know, seems a little bit weird. I understand though, as just mentioned, it gets the views. But it's a guide, so it's literally worthless after this leak. So it might be interesting for like a 3-month period, which is quite long, right? Because Path of Exile still gets new players throughout its 3 months. But still, find it something a little bit weird.
A lot of stuff that is going to be more popular isn't necessarily going to be the highest effort, right? Because, in general, you want to try and create, as much content as possible, right? On the hottest stuff right now. And if you try and make something that's, like super well crafted, like super high effort, you're going to kind of miss the boat, right? A lot of the time.
My video is only going to be good for 3 months. My stream is only going to appeal to 6 people. But there's a beauty in that. There is a beauty in realizing the world doesn't revolve around me. And so that thing can be just that thing. And so I get to make that video. And yes, it expires in a year. And you know what else happens in a year? I hopefully get better. And so that video expiring is a chance to redo it. How many times do you do something, right? Back to Warhammer. How many times do you paint a model only to realize, I wish that I could paint my model that from before as well as I can paint my model now?
You do need to be aware of what the algorithm demands. You have to feed the beast whatever we are guessing that it wants at a particular time. And so a lot of times YouTubers just, they create content that will please the algorithm. But of course, I have been in the situation where I have made videos, giant videos, knowing that they would become outdated. Like I made a mount guide showing every mount in the game a couple years ago. And now there are obviously more mounts in the game. And I made it thinking, well, I'll just put it out. And after enough time has passed, well, I'll make another one. I guess it's probably due for that fairly soon. We have something in Palmy's Routine called the Live Letter. And the Live Letter is where Yoshi P talks about all the upcoming features that are going to be in the next major patch. And this is like a big newsy piece of content that is very important. It's very time sensitive. Usually these things happen on a Friday. And there was a time when I would be like, well, I'll just take my time on it and release it on Monday. And that was not really working out that well. I mean, hell, there were times when I would release that video on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Eventually, after some trial and error, I realized that is not the way to go. So now usually during the live letter, I'm taking notes and I am immediately working as fast as I can to get it done as quickly as possible. But I do also, I have a quality standard, and every YouTuber is going to have to set that standard for themselves, right? Even if it means after something like that happened, if I need to work 12 hours, 14 hours to get it done quickly, I will in that particular case. Now, you can't do that all the time. You will burn yourself out doing that all the time.
But
seems similar to when I make videos about the live stream of Path of Exile. Because, it's literally the same, right? The Path of Exile live stream that's gonna happen in, by the way, a week. Go follow, I don't know. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna react to it, but when I react to it, I like making a reaction video of it and then cutting it down and then maybe adding some funny edits, I don't know, and just giving my 2 cents to what just happened, right? And the hour, usually I think it's an hour live stream that I cut down maybe to 15-20 minutes. And I actually want to make it shorter, but there's a lot of content usually being shown, and I kind of want to show the content and then give my opinion. So it's like, it's difficult. At some point, I just have to kind of say, okay, what's actually interesting to me or not, or in general. So yeah, and that video I have to make usually, like the best case scenario would be I do not go to bed, make the video, put it out, and then go to bed. But I actually go to bed because if it's on Thursday, I have work on Friday, so I usually make it throughout the day. So it probably comes out not 24 hours after the initial live stream, but less than that. But still, that's, yeah, there are probably also 6 other content creators out there with their editors already having made that video. So obviously mine gets less views. I mean, in general, there are also bigger content creators, but still, yeah, it's time sensitive, right?
There's another aspect.
Because at that point, 3.19 has been announced and you can see gameplay and stuff. So therefore it spikes in searches. And of course, the first content creators that put out their reaction might be also very high on the search terms, right? Obviously, or in the search bar, right? When people search stuff for it.
Consider. As useful as maxed level endgame guides are, they don't actually serve the majority of the player base. Most new players don't become maxed level endgame players. This brings us to problem 6 in MMORPG content creation, the extreme switch in player experience from the very start to the very end of the game. The vast majority of any MMO's player base will experience the opening and the middle bit, but not the hardcore end bit. Many new players, especially casuals, aren't even thinking about the ending, and if the beginning isn't good, no amount of telling them it gets better will make them stay. So it can be wise to make content aimed at the new player, such as beginner's guides and first impressions, but this is again another major issue with the MMORPG content creation process. Many long-time players will tell you that their MMORPG game gets better at endgame. Some will tell you that it completely changes the experience. And while I'm sure that's true, it's also incredibly frustrating to approach MMOs knowing this as a reviewer, because it's one of the few mediums that prides itself on being so vastly different from its opening to its ending experience. Imagine watching the first 90% of a TV show only for the final 10% to have a different cast and style. Imagine the final few chapters of a romance book suddenly changing to a choose-your-own-adventure picture book. Imagine the first 100 hours of a first-person shooter game being slow-paced and cover-based, only to switch to a third-person hack-and-slash once you hit maximum level. It sounds absurd to advertise the extreme gameplay switch as a positive, but the MMO does just that. The opening of the MMO game, the part the majority of players will experience, is often nothing like the end game, and this makes the reviewing of MMOs extremely difficult. If a content creator plays a brand new MMO...
Can someone tell me an MMO that completely changes how it works from the beginning till the end? Is that the case? I mean, maybe some PvP... Sorry, I have to like close this briefly. I mean, maybe some PvP games, like they start you as a PvE, right? You level with PvE, but then you completely switch to PvP. I can probably see that. Okay, yeah, that would be a huge switch. Okay, yeah, no, I see that. I don't know. I would be like... Yeah, I mean, that would be really weird. That would be really dumb, to be honest. But at that point, it's also... Sorry. But it's also... You as the player, when starting an MMO, you should probably look into the aspects that you enjoy. For me, if I hear, this MMO, incredible PvP gameplay, I literally go away. I literally 180 and walk away when I hear the words or letters PvP. I am very far behind there at the screen. That is a totally real screen. This is not a fake green screen. Anyways, right, the moment I hear PvP, I'm just my penis goes inside my body. It's not flaccid. It literally retracts back into my body. That's pretty much what happens when I hear PvP. But that's... I, as a player who starts playing the game, should probably look into what this game can offer me. You know what I mean? I guess.
They've never played before and gives it a decent amount of time, let's say 20 or 30 hours, and then makes a review based on the experience they had in that 20 or 30 hours, that is a valid first impression. It was what they experienced. Yeah. If, however, those 20 or 30 hours are not a good representation of what the game actually is, that's not an issue with the creator's experience, that's an issue with the pacing and design of the game. Of course, no one is expecting a player to become all-powerful within 20 or 30 hours. No one is saying you can experience all the content. You will likely barely scratch the surface. But if the opening 20 to 30 of your game is not an accurate representation of your game's strengths or the type of fun and gameplay a player can expect to be working toward, why are they there? There is no other form of entertainment media so self-indulgent as to demand the user slog through an inferior version of itself before rewarding them with the superior version. It's strange to a non-MMO player to see that we as a community have come to not only accept but almost expect the genre to treat its best content as a reward for enduring its worst. Unfortunately, this design trope of it gets better at endgame is so ingrained in the MMO community's mindset that as an MMO creator, you are often left thinking, I know this opening section is going to be irrelevant later, but I also know it's the only section a massive amount of players will ever experience. So do I review this as a relevant bit of the game and risk angering the established player base who will tell me, this isn't the good bit, why are you focusing on this? Or do I ignore this bit and rush to the good bit and risk alienating the new players who wanted a genuine review to show the actual experience they are going to have, boring opening included? Reviewing an MMO often feels like reviewing multiple games because the MMO itself morphs so frequently into multiple different experiences.
And so I've seen modern MMOs actually kind of...
I don't know what you mean with inverted. What are you talking about? The camera isn't inverted. You should be able to read this with the X-ray. So, yeah. You can actually quickly see this if it's inverted, the camera, but it shouldn't be. Anyway, or mirrored. Mirrored path of exile. Anyways, speaking of path of exile, oh, man, my segues are hot today. So, by the way, I hope the volume is good of the video. I hope you can actually hear it. Your penis, Jesus Christ. Oh, did I say inverted? Did I mean inverted? I don't know, just pushed back. Anyways, old topic, new topic. A game is a journey. From the literal seconds you click the button play on Steam, maybe even before that, depends on if the installation sucks ass. It's a journey, and the smoother that journey is, the better. That's it. Okay, otherwise, the smoother and the more you enjoy it, right? The better it is for the game. No matter what game it is. It doesn't freaking matter. If you enjoy it, if it's smooth, if it works, if that's important. Doesn't matter if it's the second you click the play button on Steam, it starts. Your journey with this game starts. Because, for example, if the game sucks ass and it crashes 4 times in the opening cutscene, when I click on new game and start the game, and it crashes 4 times and I have to restart watching the cutscene, or the game crashes right after clicking play over and over again, that is part of the journey of this game. And it's about the journey of the game. It's not about the end game. So that's why I always say, like, if you do not enjoy the first hours of Path of Exile, then yeah, maybe you just don't like the genre or how the game is presented, which is fair. Right? I also don't like Dark Souls, one of the biggest, not genres, but yeah, I mean, it kind of became a genre, Souls like, but like one of the biggest, like, what is it, game franchises, right? I just don't like it because they like having very few enemies, but very strong, and they can kill you. I'm the exact opposite of that. I want lots of enemies and mow through them as quickly as possible. I understand that the beginning of a game isn't that. I totally understand this. But if a game starts like Dark Souls or Surge, or I think I played Surge 2 or whatever it's called, I quickly realize this ain't for me, because the journey already starts so goddamn low and unenjoyable. I can't imagine that I'm gonna enjoy the next 8 hours or whatever.
Frequently into multiple different experiences.
And so I've seen modern MMOs actually kind of grow in that level of friction. It's not that the end game is different from the start of the game. Ideally, it's all the same. It's just new content that exists. And then I can then create videos that talk about the content experience rather than the end game experience.
Like, you can do the first impressions video and you can do the full-on like end game review and service 2 different markets with those 2 videos. And it's not like one doesn't have value or devalues the other one, because first impressions are what most people are looking for. Is this game worth my time? Am I going to enjoy the process before I get to the end game and spend all that time? Because the vast majority of people don't have, 100 hours to just put into every game to see whether it's good or not. And if they don't enjoy the initial experience, they're probably going to go and find something else, maybe not an MMO, that they will enjoy the initial experience of. So I think they both have value.
People who are already invested in their MMO will not recognize the importance of first impressions when it comes to new player retention. Even if you have to go through 50 to 100 hours of pure boredom to get to the fun part. You could have the most crap leveling experience ever, pure suffering. And if someone says they quit because the leveling sucked, you'll get a comment going, well, it gets good at the end game. People who are already invested in the game no longer care about the new player experience because they're past it. Even though in the long run, their game may have less players as a result of this experience being bad. I think you just need to explain why an MMO's first impressions are important during the video. You could have the best endgame ever, but if nobody gets to it, what's the point?
I mean, yeah, it's a good point. That's what Josh always says, right? And Leisure Beyond definitely thinks, I guess, the same, right? As in, journey is very important. It's interesting, though. It's actually so interesting. Now that I realize it, actually gave me it just kind of clicked to me, because I was thinking the end game players don't care about the experience of the beginning because they don't care about it because they're in the end game, right? And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then I realized the next, like I said, yes, they realized without actually realizing it in my head. MMOs don't reset your progress. I know it's a shocker. I just had a 5-head. Okay, it's literally a 3-head moment. Anyway, because in my mind, I think of Path of Exile. Path of Exile resets you after every league. Everyone starts at 0. That's it. No MMO does this, I think. And that's the interesting part. Imagine MMOs reset your fucking progress after every year, ooh, the beginning of the game would be very different. Mark my words. No, you know what? They would be selling more of instantly get to level 60 packs or some bullshit. Let's be honest.
I mean, again, you're never going to make everyone happy. There's just no way to. But so reviewing a video game, you can do in 20 hours, you can do in 40 hours, because you can go from start to finish, you can complete it, you can cover every facet of a game, you can experience everything a game has to offer. But an MMO, for the most part, successfully completing it is not realistically achievable in that same 20-hour, 40-hour, 50-hour period. Even if you were to invest 100 hours, 200 hours into it, you're still not going to see what the end game players see. Now, reviewing it from a new player perspective and then reviewing it from an end game perspective are always going to alienate parts of their respective communities. It's disingenuous for a person to say that a game is something based off of just that surface level experience as opposed to someone that invests thousands of hours into it. And you're never going to be capable of addressing everything everyone wants.
What we're known for as a genre. We had these widely different experiences, early game, mid game, into end game, and that's not true of like all of the time. In fact, one of the biggest examples that comes to mind that I believe that you're very familiar with, RuneScape, is like a game that I think had so much transferability with the casual audience, not just because of browser game, free, and all that other stuff that it had as value. It feels like you're playing the game from right away, and I feel like that's always something that people like about games like RuneScape, is that it doesn't feel like, okay, when I get 99 fishing, then I'm really gonna start fishing, and it's like, no, okay, like I can start fishing now, and I can fish until I get to whatever, you know, rank in fishing I want to get. My stance can probably be assumed to be that I kind of dislike how so many games have basically become glorified tutorials that then come into an actual game. I find the difficulty with that is that basically if you want to cover the game in its entirety, which is always what I'm interested in doing when I do a review, which I don't do very many of them for that reason, and they're not very profitable, which is another point, is like the amount of work and effort to get like destroyed over something that you're just like, you know what, I don't really know if everyone wants this as much as I think they do.
You eliminate a large portion of the game when you don't hit endgame, because raids, dungeons, PvP, that massive core feature of an MMO is all...
Wait, can we repeat this?
Raids, dungeons, PvP, that...
All the things I don't like. I'm sorry. Literally all three things I do not like. Maybe that's the reason I don't like MMOs. Because it's usually, they're always talking about the end game, which is always like raids, dungeons, and PvP. And I'm like, raids? Cool. So I wait for garbage to happen. And usually, what I do doesn't really matter because there are 50 other people. Alright, poggers. Dungeons. Maybe a little bit more interesting, and I think more on the PvP side. Still, probably with multiple people. I don't want to sit in a queue. I want to play the video game. Usually now I think in MMOs you can go in a queue and move around and then actually get into the dungeon. Thank God for that. Probably took about 10 years. I don't fucking know. Still, I want to beat the dungeon on my own, for Christ's sake. I'm a single player guy, you know. Like most of the games I played back in the day are single player. Me versus game. I good win game. You know, the big brain. So yeah, anyways. This has nothing to do with her, nothing to do with the video. I just realized everything she just said is like, oh, cool, yeah, raid, don't care, dungeons, I don't care, PvP, disgusting. I just, everything she just said, I'm like, no.
Massive
that actually turns me off of a game.
Feature.
Like, especially when it markets itself as like, the best PvP, I'm sleeping.
Of an MMO is always at endgame, or at least the best experience is always at endgame. I actually think that the way that MMOs are constructed are very clever because it prolongs their shelf life for each player. If you think of a single player game, let's take Dying Light, for example, right? It took 70 hours to 100% complete that game. And so many people were really angry about it because 70 hours is such an incredible amount of time. Well, not with MMO players. That's how they've always been. And that's why they're different to any other game that's out there, any other game media type that's out there. They've always been like this. They've always rewarded users for putting in hours and hours of their time into a game.
I think you can actually find some really important critiques as a very new player. And, you know, it's funny. There's no better game to demonstrate this than Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 is kind of complicated for newer players, actually. This is one of the biggest complaints by new players. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what the hell's going on. What am I supposed to do? I think you can similarly see that in other games. You know, like I think Final Fantasy is criticized for having a very slow starting out leveling experience, for example. World of Warcraft can be critiqued for having slightly confusing progression systems, particularly as you get towards the end game. I think these are actually really important. I think the reviewer does need to keep this in mind, that things might change, but I think it is actually important to say, yeah, the new player experience could use a little bit of work, right? That ain't so hot. It's in the interest of an MMO's community and fan base that these issues would be addressed, because then you're going to get more players, right? Then your community's bigger, then your game company gets more money and you get more content.
I would say that what I've learned from that is don't do the video at 10 hours. Do it once you know you have some context, and especially that you have something positive to say. Even if you have 10 negative things to say, hold on to those. They are valid. And the veteran players need to understand that those are the things stopping that community from growing. So if you don't put those in there, you're never going to grow. Like because every new player is going to watch that video, they're going to try the game based on that video, and then because you didn't tell them about any of the bad things, they're going to go, it must just not be for me, because I must just be totally insane for running into these negatives. No, we all ran into them. We're just not talking about it. Go in there, find the compliment, open with that. So the veteran players understand, okay, he at least got to the good thing. And then you can say, my issue is that I had to go through these 5 things to get there.
And now we come to one of the strangest differences.
You know what? That is definitely something I can take away for literally the next years when I make content. That's a very good way actually of looking at it. If you experienced a very bad game, and I'm actually going to look this in the next videos I will make. I mean, the game I'm playing right now that I have 25 hours of footage of, Jesus goddamn Christ, that will be horrible to edit down. I very much enjoyed. So I will still think in my head of what he just said. Start with the positives, but where was this positive and how long did it take to get there? And I think I will always start with the positive and then either say what was positive and when, and how long did it take me to get there. With the video, the game I'm playing right now offline and want to make a video of, probably in 2-3 weeks, hopefully. Let's pray to God. It's mostly positive because it's a game that I'm like, yes, please more. But maybe with negative games, I will probably think of that quote right there. Think of the start with the positives, but when was that positive in your playthrough, and what did you went through, and what did you not like until then? You know, maybe something like this. It's quite interesting way of thinking. Very good.
Playing an MMO for fun can be completely different to playing it to analyze or critique. Many players have watched my videos and said, there's no way you played for 8 to 10 hours. You only got to that bit. I got there in 4 hours. And while it's probably true they did get there in 4 hours, the difference in progress lies in the fundamental way your gaming time can change when you're playing to evaluate and analyze instead of just your own enjoyment. Imagine the difference in speed reading a book simply to get through the story versus slowly analyzing each paragraph for the themes and structure so you can write a report on it. One of them takes a lot longer. Now, you could always speed read the book and then try to write a report on it, but I promise you, you will forget the specifics or miss the hidden meanings. It's the same when playing to critique. When I play a game for content, I have a notepad and a pen, and I make extensive notes on every single thing in the game. I'll play for 5 minutes, write for 5 minutes. Play for 5 minutes, write for 5 minutes. I'll take notes on anything and everything, because I have to mine the experience to find the minutiae which makes entertaining content. Stopping to take notes, of course, staggers the flow of gameplay.
Good point.
But even without the note-taking, when playing to critique, you don't play in the most efficient way. It's not about speed running the quests or power leveling. You'll click every button in the menu. You'll equip every item. You'll talk to every NPC. If someone was watching you in the game, you'd look like you were lost because you'd be doing everything a completely fresh player would. For example, in my Rift video, I made a joke about how the opening area has an item in the shop called Mudder's Milk. This is a reference to the sci-fi TV show Firefly. But the only way I was able to make that 10-second throwaway joke and find that item was by talking to every single NPC and then opening every shop and reading every item name and description, which is something a veteran player of this game wouldn't do because they know this area is a pointless early game tutorial, and a new player wouldn't do it because you've not been encouraged to do that. As a reviewer, you're going to watch all of the in-game cutscenes, read all the subtitles, and then spend some time trying to boundary break because the scenery looks precarious. And it may end up being 20 wasted minutes just running at a wall, or it'll be the funny bit where you manage to find a gap in the floor and fly under the city. You'll complete the opening quest in slower ways because you don't know the optimal route.
Isn't that in Terra? Yeah, worst MMO ever, Terra.
Yet, and if you get given boosting items in your inventory, you won't use them, because if you do, you'll completely break the narrative flow. Playing to critique isn't just enjoying the surface level experience and hoping you'll remember it all later, because you won't. It's playing suboptimally and interrogating the experience while making notes. This often means in a single hour of gameplay, you'll only actually advance 30 to 40 minutes worth into the game. This also means that if you did play for 100 hours as suggested earlier, it's not 100 hours of casually chilling on the sofa just playing the game. It's 100 hours of asking why to every experience and then cross-referencing it with every other MMO you've ever played so you can compare and contrast the experiences. While playing in a more analytical way changes your experience while gathering footage for YouTube or writing a script, live streaming an MMO on Twitch is also substantially different, but in another way. Live streaming an MMO to an audience is not playing the game efficiently, and it's definitely not stopping in silence to take notes every 5 minutes. It's using the game as background ambience while entertaining. Sometimes it's doing strange things in the game which are terrible gameplay, but great content. A streamer puts entertaining the audience first. And while high-level effective gameplay can be entertaining, such as watching a world first or a solo boss kill, those streams appeal to high-skilled, experienced players who understand the complexity of what they're watching, and they can appreciate the gameplay alone. If you're trying to entertain the majority of an MMO's player base, or even a broader gaming demographic using gameplay within an MMO, your gameplay will not be hyper-efficient. It might be deliberately inefficient, silly, or deliberately annoying.
The way that I look at things is that generally,
yeah, like if that's the type of content you go for, being annoying, right, or I don't know, making weird voices. Like for example, maybe you play a game and love making voices to it, right? Like in RPGs, and you make the voices. Like, yeah, it could be annoying, but exactly that could be the charm of what you're doing, and maybe some people like it. Like it might be annoying for some, and some people like it. Who knows? But yeah, very, very good points. Just overall, very good points. As in, yeah, I definitely see that a lot when I play the games, and I even compare it to other games. I think, man, I don't want to go on my own channel and just talk about this, but what was that one video I made about no, not the Headhunter. I made the Headhunter video? What the fuck? I completely forgot I made this video. In my head, I always thought I made this video and then this video. I completely forgot I made the Path of Exile video. Anyways, Atomic Crops, for example, was a very good, was very, pretty much that, what he just mentioned, what Josh just mentioned, as in, you compare it to other games that you played, because Atomic Crops had so many issues, so many small things, and I compared it to a little bit of Stardew Valley because it was about farming, but also about maybe Enter the Gungeon because it's a bullet hell, and also other bullet hell games, and try to reference with other games to understand it, because it's kind of weird. Atomic Crops is kind of weird. And it was also so ridiculously fast, and in certain ways just so bad, and I truly didn't like it. But while you're trying to understand, why don't I like this game, right? Literally what he just said, you're constantly asking why. And only by asking why, even in real life, you will get an answer, or you will get hopefully to an answer. Either if you ask a person or you ask yourself, why don't I enjoy this? Why do I not enjoy playing this game? Why do I not like hearing this or something? Right? You need to ask why, and because of constantly asking why, it takes time. And I'm actually regretting not writing down any notes for the video I'm going to make soon. But I haven't, so it's going to be very interesting if I maybe fall into a situation where I'm like completely miss some context, some things that I really wanted to mention, and 3 weeks later after putting out the video, I'm like, oh god, I missed this, right? Yeah, that's why note-taking is so super important. Anyways, ask why. Ask why is very good to realize, yeah, why. It literally gives you context to something. It's why. Why is such a powerful word. It's just why. Why is that? Why not? Why is it?
I kind of do, like, I'll always try to break the game. It's like whenever the alpha for a new WoW expansion will come out, everybody will watch my stream, not to see me test out the new abilities, but to see what the new abilities can you go through that wall in Sunwell with this ability? Or, what happens if you use this at the top of Mount Hyjal and you fly down with it, or like, with dragon riding or something like that. And fundamentally, whenever you're playing a game, if the game is fulfilling, if it's fun, if it's rewarding, that's really what matters the most. And I think that you see this a lot with like different types of, especially like professional reviews, is that they will grade a game on criteria that is not valuable to what an average audience player would want. And I think that's a really big problem, honestly, because there's a massive disconnect between what the audience wants to see and what the audience cares about and what reviewers care about. So I try to play the game in a way that the review is going to reflect to a certain degree what an average player is going to experience. But that's also very hard to do because, you know, I've got a bunch of people playing with me. You know, I'll have people give me gold. And so whenever I'm playing a game, I have to contextualize all of that and say, like, well, listen, you know, this was not a big deal for me, but for an average person, it's like New World crafting. Yeah, I got furnishing to 200 in a day, but there are people that spent months on it and they still didn't get it to 200 because it fucking sucked. So I think it's important to take those things in consideration whenever you're reviewing a game. But the most important thing is to review a game in a way that's true to your audience. And I think that's one way that professional reviews have fallen short a lot recently. But
to be honest, if that works for Asmongold, and I haven't really watched his content at all, just recently I started to watch a little bit of his, like, funny enough, I watched his videos about reacting to other people's content. But him saying he accepts gold or currency or whatever from other people the first time he plays a game, and he obviously has to then say, well, I had a good time, but I also got this and that from other people, that the moment I see this in a video, I will Control W. I will close that video and or even dislike it. I don't dislike a lot of videos, but I will dislike that. Because you cannot, in my opinion, make a first impression or even do a first impression stream, whatever the fuck, when you're brand new to a game. You play that game blind, without any help. If it's a co-op game, then it's probably fine. But you cannot tell me it's good when you go into a game in an MMO and you get gold thrown at you to then tell me you can make a good assessment of how a newbie player would be. There is no fucking way. Anyways, this is my 2 cents on it. I would never watch the channel again, because clearly that person thinks this is okay. I don't think it's okay. I don't think that person is going to change its opinion. Maybe in a couple of years, who knows? That channel is pretty much dead to me. That's it.
The different thing that I do is I try and interact with it like a totally regular.
At least it's that for that opinion, or for that type of content. If he starts making other content about, here's a fun review about Morbius. Sure, I might enjoy that, right? Because of his personality. But about games, very likely not. Maybe single player games, sure. But online games where he can trade with people and he just gets money and he's like, yeah, this game was easy. But I mean, I got money that took other people a month to farm. So it might be probably a little bit difficult for you. Oh, no shit. It's like and then they always say, I love this game. Yeah, because you got... Anyway.
Look at it from a regular player's perspective. What does the player who's interacting with this at this point in the game where it becomes available, what do they know? Do they know enough things that this is properly tutorialized? Will they be able to do this? Does that content interact with them well? Does it work with a regular person's schedule? If you're a person that is logging on for 1 hour...
I don't know why people giving you things affect the game. What do you mean? I don't know why people giving you things affect the game. It does affect... Well, no. It, as in... For me personally, this is totally me personally. If I watch a video of a first impression of whatever game it is, and the person gets boosted in any way, especially if it's pay to win, in an XP boost shit, I really don't want to watch more of that video. That's why I, by the way, played Lost Ark not using the fucking XP boost. On purpose. To say, fuck you, game. Either fix your experience throughout the entire early game, so you don't need me to use an XP boost. Right? I wanted to feel or play the game raw, in my opinion. That's just how I make my videos, how I play my games, how I want it. Right? Exactly, because it corrupts the person. Yeah, okay. So you're on my side. Not saying you can't be on my side. That's not what I was talking about. But how you worded the first sentence, the first question, sounded like if people give you things, it doesn't affect the game. That's how it's worded. At least that's how I read it. Anyway. But yeah, and then your second question is kind of exactly the opposite. So I was like, what are you talking about? Anyways, yeah. Yeah, it corrupts the first impression. That's it. Literally, then I will not ever watch your content about first impressions. I'm like, okay, bro. That's like a Minecraft first impression and the player turns on cheats. What? What the fuck? Sims 4 is an amazing game. Anyways, I use cheats and mods to get infinite money. It's like, the fuck?
Every day. Does it work for that?
A lot of players, when they first jump in to play an MMO, their first goal is the end game, right? World of Warcraft, get to max level, do raiding and whatever. But as we've got like a limited time budget on this, we are trying to extensively review in the time frame that we've got. And doing so means we have to extensively evaluate the start of the game, which, as you said, is not something that a player would do. They will rush through to the end game. I find it quite hard to review MMOs in that way because I realise that it seems like a very odd review to a lot of people, but it also kind of works in our favour because there are things here that, like I say, players will never see, and other game reviews from the specialised channels, they may not even include any of that.
I think it's going to vary by content creator to content creator because me saying that I think I should...
By the way, the context is right now playing for fun versus playing to critique. I sometimes actually have to remind myself what the context is to what they're saying. I'm sorry.
Always be playing for fun, even in the analysis, is that it comes through the natural discovery. Deeper dives are when the game then requires it of me. And so I get frustrated when I hear people say, oh, you're not efficient. I go, the game's not requiring me to be efficient. There's no pushback. There's no feedback mechanism that says I'm doing anything wrong.
I don't play any differently because I think I'm a critical person in general. Pretty much everything in my life I do, I critique while I'm doing it. So I don't really play the games any differently. I just play it as if a normal person would play the game. And then if I miss something or whatever, I think most people would miss that. And if not, somebody's going to point it out and that's cool and everything. But I'm just going to play the game to try and enjoy it because I think that's the best way to do it in terms of like how the average person would experience it.
Playing for fun would be an MMO that's good enough for me to play in my spare time, not making content for it. Just play the game with headphones in, with something on the second monitor, relaxing. You take a break from moaning about the game and just enjoy it for what it is. Playing to critique, you're analysing everything and vocalising your thoughts. Things that aren't a big deal when you're playing for fun or chilling become a bigger deal because your intentions are different. You're making a video to highlight problems with the game, with the hopes that the developers see the video, take your feedback, and improve the game.
That is a very good point, Lazy Peon put it. For example, when I record the video, I will make hopefully a video of. Did I say just video twice? The game I have been playing in the past week or so that I want to make a video of, I sometimes forgot I'm recording. And that just shows I'm enjoying myself. That right there for someone like me. I know for someone who doesn't create content and stuff, it probably is weird, but the moment I lose myself in the game and just play and explore and I want to do stuff, that is when I enjoy myself. I don't do it for the content or for the Vine, definitely not for the Vine, but I just play the game and I'm just immersed in it. Immersion is just a good word, I think, for that.
Slow player to begin with.
You know what's the worst immersion when I play a game? When Thomas the Tank Engine flies in like a dragon in Skyrim. Anyways.
Unless it's something I've played 10 times already. I'm very much sort of person who likes to absorb the world and even like role play a little bit in some very mild ways, do the old RP walking, that sort of thing. So I guess if I had a deadline, maybe I actually would be more efficient than how I normally play a game, because how I normally play a game is very much immersing myself deeply.
It's the same as when streaming, because I don't know if you know about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that's launching in just a few days, but I love just kind of like becoming absorbed into them. If you're approaching it with the sole purpose of critiquing, criticizing, or praising specific aspects of it, you're sitting there like, okay, so this person is saying that isn't translated correctly, these textures don't fit, okay, this combat's actually kind of slow and boring, why do I need to kill 15 boars? You go from just having fun, experiencing something new, to immediately having to find fault with as many things as possible. And that is especially true when you realize that the majority of people that watch videos are purely because they want you to talk smack about everything that they don't like about the video game.
Yeah, I mean, it partially kind of is like this, but that's why I actually like Josh a lot. I love Josh for that. He praises the things that he likes, and he talks bad about the things that he dislikes but he has a reason for it. It's not like lol texture bad, because he then usually maybe puts it in context of another MMO of the same time frame or whatever, and is like, why that look better? I mean, of course, it's difficult to say that because that team might have had 500 deaths, that one might have had 1,000 or something, or just no. But still, yeah. But then you can you can easily ignore the amount maybe of people working on it, but you can go for the budget, right? This MMO took 20 million to make. I'm just pulling numbers out of mess. This one took 50. Why does the game with 20 million has better textures, right? As context. But that's why I also like to go for it. I like to praise the good things, but also talk about the things that I do not like. But I also understand that just because I don't like it doesn't mean other people don't like it, right? I think I had this with a Dreamscaper, the latest video I made. It has so many good aspects, and I realized when playing the game, the aspects I disliked might have been things that you personally actually like. So that's how I framed it. I didn't say this game's garbage because it is. No, I was like, as always, good criticism is being calm, putting your opinion out there. That's it. And it was this game's garbage. As well, when that guy said he plays for 5 minutes and writes points down for 5 minutes, if he forgets or just keeps playing without writing, that's a pretty good sign. True, yeah. I mean, if Josh at some point says he's just immersed, I mean, that still doesn't mean I like the game, but that is just maybe for the person. It's interesting context. Yeah, that's for sure, right? It's just interesting context. It still doesn't mean like, man, I was so like, for example, if he's an old school RuneScape guy and he loves PvP and raids in a game and he completely loses himself in doing that and doesn't really write down his notes, I still ain't gonna play that because I freaking love PvP in games. Anyways.
Difference between when I became like a career critic and so on and so forth and did QA work and QA testing, like it does kind of offer this different perspective where now fun for my individual sense and entitlement isn't the only thing that I'm searching for. So I find that it's a large part of like that concept is basically being able to divorce yourself from yourself and your personal enjoyment, but to be able to look at the game and say, okay, well, how does the game actually function on kind of like a base level outside of myself? So like, and to your point, I actually think that that's fairly true for me as well, but in a different way, where because I have a lot of history testing games, that is, to your point, you mentioned like trying to break a boundary. I actually spend so much time in early MMO experiences just trying to bug the game out and glitch. I actually feel kind of self-conscious about this, but I don't like streaming my gameplay as much when I have like impressions on something or when I'm forming my early thoughts for that reason, because I feel like people are so focused, and I know you probably experience this sometimes too, of telling me what to do. They'll do it religiously. They'll say, you need to go do this, and you need to go do that. And I'm like, okay guys, like I've already said, please like understand that I am weird and I'm doing weird things, and sometimes I'll spend an hour just on my keybinds. Like that's how I play and experience and do all the stuff that we're talking about, be critical.
Yep. Actually, I had that. Sorry, what did you say? You really like versing the game, don't you? What do you mean versing the game? I don't understand. But I actually very much feel with Nerd Slayer, like, well, partially. I when I pretty much had every Sunday was a random game. I was very much a variety, as in every Sunday I streamed, and I streamed a random game, unless it's I do a playthrough of a certain game, but usually I played. You really like versing the game. Versing? Like, I enjoy PV because that's how I grew up, right? I played Game Boy games. So that's you versus the game, right? You understand enemy patterns. You try to abuse them. I love that. Still don't like Dark Souls. Fuck that. I don't know if I like Elden Ring. I don't know about that one. I haven't tried it, but if I don't like 3 games of the same dev, I don't know about that one. I don't know about Elden Ring, you know. At some point, you don't need to like every developer, let's be honest. Anyways, add every developer here that makes horror games. Done. Don't like. Anyway, good. what did I want to talk about? Yes, when I did the first impression videos, I tried to focus a lot less on like setting the game up and just getting into the game, because it's a stream, right? People want to see gameplay. That's why they come. So I constantly like try to move way faster in the first impression to actually show more of the game. But when I play offline, bro, I'm definitely playing slower. Also, I sometimes just look on my second monitor when something fun happens. For example, when I don't know, watch any stream. To be honest, I did play the recent game now without any background noise because I kind of want to use I might use the... Probably shouldn't do that. But on the other side, it's kind of good, because if the game doesn't hold my attention and I constantly need some other game on my second monitor, is it really that good? You know what I mean? Either way. Yeah, whatever. We're not gonna go into that now. You go download a mod for Elden Ring and play Roro. I can't say this. Sorrow from One Piece. True, dude. I could do that and enjoy. Actually, I had such an idea. Thanks, actually, to you talk about the keep inventory stuff in Minecraft. That really got me thinking about something I might do for a video. I should actually write this down at some point. But yeah, you got me thinking of something. I'm like, right, I could do this. Maybe. I don't know if it will make something, but it will give me a reason to do something that I generally wouldn't do maybe with other games. So that might be a series. Anyways, let's continue watching. We're soon done. Not that I want to be done, because it's super interesting and I definitely learned a lot from watching this. And also, it's great reaction content. Also, it's nearly 10 p.m. and I kind of want to go to bed at some point.
You spend hours doing the minute little things that everyone else breezes over, hours making notes of the most minor things, because that's what a review is. Some people might take certain things for granted, like a wiggle of an icon or a circle on a mini-map, because the average player doesn't really notice those things. But
Yep.
as a reviewer, it's your responsibility to point those out, to make a statement on it, and explain exactly what it is. You don't get to play an MMO the same way as the average person gets to play an MMO, which sounds bizarre, right? Because you're creating a review for the average MMO player, or someone who's never played an MMO before. But your experience when you're playing an MMO for content is completely different. The average player can get through the World of Warcraft starting area in about 20 minutes if they play efficiently. But if you actually went and you critiqued every single experience within the tutorial zone of WoW, you would literally be there for 4.5 hours. I've done it. I know.
For sure, yeah, it definitely is a different mindset.
Interesting.
I would say though that I think with reviews, what you'll find is that it's actually a combination of both of these things. It's not like, oh, the only stuff that goes into the review is my hardcore analysis. I think the analysis is important. You know, as a reviewer, you want to say, okay, how does this actually work? What is this system? How, you know, there's a cool reference there. I love the attention to detail here. So you are going to be analytical, because those are the things that can really, you can characterize a game. You can see the care and the love that the developers put into crafting this video game.
Yeah.
So I think that analysis is super important. But I think in a review, you're also going to be talking about, yeah, I was playing the game and this happened and it was cool, right? I was doing this with my friends and it was really fun and we really loved that. That was an amazing, memorable experience.
Yep.
So I think that there is a different mode when you go into analysis critique mode, but there's always going to be, in my opinion, that underlying component of, I played the game and it was fun.
Knowing that this is a
it's
game
still
you're
a
gonna be
game.
playing for
A
video,
game should be
I
fun.
mean, I do the same thing, apart from I don't have a pen and paper. My handwriting is like a 5-year-old's. What I do and what my goal is every time is, again, it's kind of going back to the question beforehand, is I'm trying to play as if I was a player. The key word there is trying. So there is that issue of, you've got to go check everything out. You've got to see what the mechanics are. It's really important, because if you don't check the mechanics out, you know, you're just going to have like a very general experience and you don't have that much to review on. So of course you do have that push, but also at the same time, if I'm getting bored of something, if I find that this is tedious, I'm like, do you know what? I can't even really do anything with this as well. I might even just mention that in the video if it's quite bad. But you do have in the back of your head, you need to check everything out. Compared to when you're playing, when you've just downloaded a game and you just want to play it for fun, you might not check everything out.
My wife makes fun of me because our most successful streams, some of my most successful videos, have all been when I'm doing something that would, by a typical gameplay experience, not be considered playing the game. I clicked on a sign in Final Fantasy XIV for 78 hours. We did it every Monday for like 2 months. We just clicked on a sign for 6 to 8 hours and then called it a day. And we did that. It was a total of 78 hours. And then there's a rare chance you get a house, and I got the house. And then that ended. And Brian asked me, I mean, these streams were literally 100 times more successful than anything else we'd done at the time. And Brian asked me offline, he goes, what's the worst thing that could happen on streaming right now? You know, like, does your microphone go bad? And I said, honestly, the worst thing that could happen is I get the house. Like the content is the not content. Like I'm wanting it, but like the worst thing that can happen is I get what I want. So we did a spreadsheet stream like 2 weeks ago, and I just did spreadsheets.
If you are sitting down to do something
Jesus.
for work, even if it is work that you enjoy, you're going to have a little bit of a different mindset than when you sit down just to chill out and just to get the feel of things, get the vibe of things. You know, that's different. But maybe a little bit of both is good to do, you know, because obviously you need the analytical method. Like you said, checking every NPC and checking every little shop and all of that, checking every item. This helps you see what many players may have seen already, but you also need to have your own unique perspective, like your own natural and unique perspective that is the way that the game was designed to be enjoyed. It's like the difference between analyzing all of the ingredients that go into a meal and being a judge on Top Chef or something, and like thinking about the plating and the presentation and all that, and like and this difference between that and like sitting down at your friend's house to enjoy food that they cooked for you, right? Like these are two completely different mindsets, and I think that it might be good to experience both of them while you're looking at a game.
Yeah. Great commentary, Danielle. I know. Yeah. You're welcome. No, I think of how I make videos, and of course there's no right or wrong. There's only a right or wrong for the person, for the viewer, and if you are the wrong person for the viewer, then you are just the wrong choice, right? The wrong person to do whatever that viewer wants you to do, maybe. I realized that when I play a game, even in Path of Exile, I have never, ever read every single character's dialogue or listened to it. Never, ever, ever, ever. I didn't do it when I started it, and I still don't do it. Obviously because I don't, because I want to go through the story. Not because the story is boring, but I want to level my character more, you know. But I think that's also the general... But that also can be my own unique experience with the game. I don't need to specifically play it as a newbie. Or as a extreme... Well, no, sorry. Not as a newbie. But I don't need to play a game with the mindset of I'm a reviewer. I'm clicking on everything. No, I don't think that's actually maybe something I want. If you, the reviewer, takes his time, sure. I personally wouldn't do that, because then I would actually fake how I would play the game. Because me as a player, you know how I would play an MMO? I would find the one button that makes dialogue skip and or enter the scene. Maybe not the cutscene, if it's semi-good. But dialogue, I would usually skip. I would just be like, next, let's go, you know, because... But that really depends on the game. But that is my experience, and that is how I play the game. And if that is how I play the game, and present how I played the game, and I voice my opinion on it, that's it. Of course, I would be a hypocrite if I say, man, the voice acting was garbage, and I skipped every dialogue. Then I can't just throw everything into the same bucket. You know what I mean? I would be a hypocrite. I would be a fucking dumbass. But that's also not how I make videos, because I'm not a goddamn dumbass. But I still would just skip the dialogue if I realize, okay, this ain't really important, or I don't really care about it, or it's not maybe why I'm here, you know, then I just skip it. And that's just my personal experience with the game. That's it. And that could be valuable maybe to some developers. Because in Path of Exile, for example, I agree to the people, and I think his name is Preach. I think it was Preach, finally, Pathways must hear nice. I think it was Preach, the WoW streamer, who played the game and said the dialogue is great, but there is way too much of it between the actual combat. And I really pray that GGG takes this like as feedback for Path of Exile 2, which they are making right now as we speak, and actually implement the dialogue during the gameplay. not halt your progress for like a solid 3 minutes after every quest, you know, because they're just talking and talking and talking and talking right? I totally understand this, and that is a bad aspect of Path of Exile 1 right now. So I totally understand when people are just skipping it. Same as me, right? That's just my personal experience. So I don't think going into full reviewer mode and clicking every button and doing everything and moving every window around and being like, I saw a bug there. What the? Why is this UI weird? Look, when I move it like this from this. Who gives a fuck? You are literally not doing what a normal player probably would do. You know what I mean? There are two different reviewers at that point. If you are that type of reviewer, okay, that's fine. I personally wouldn't want that though. Like, just play the game. Just see how you like it. That's it, right? I don't know. Like, do I go into software and click every single button and do everything with it? Probably not. I will just do the one thing I had in mind and or watch a guide on how to do it. I don't know. That was just my 2 cents on literally the last thing. I just play the game and I see, and if I have to click every single button because the game makes me to, all right, then that's my experience with it, because the game forces me to, which is probably then every player's experience. But if the game doesn't force me to, then I don't. For example, Mitch, you might have the same, you might have a completely different first impression, because there are later in Path of Exile. Yeah, it's your first impression, play how you play it. Yeah, exactly. I'm a player. I'm not a reviewer. That's just how I see myself. I am a player that makes content around playing the game. I'm not reviewing the game, because my videos are not reviews. They are first impressions. Technically, the video I will make probably goes into a review kind of thing, but I still want to have more of a chill side to it, because I know I am not good enough to be a reviewer, to write an insanely detailed script. My English isn't incredibly important. I don't have a wide vocabulary to explain my thoughts, so I don't make videos around that. Anyways, what I wanted to say, Mitch, if you play Path of Exile, for example, you might actually skip content. You probably won't, because they show it off in some cases in the story, and you're like, oh, what's this? Let me click this, right? So something, a new player. Here's something as a new player on PoE. Okay. I'll just wait for your comment, and then we're gonna finish the video. The conclusio. I don't have water since like half an hour. Really need some water, and I really want to cook after this. Oh my god, it's nearly 10 p.m. already. Dude, is my internet dying right now? I have lost 2.7% of my frames. Okay, bro. Weird internet issues. Sorry for today, if it looked weird. I said this to my friend, but I would like more class, like 4 more. What do you mean classes? Like the original characters that you can choose that are like in a half circle? You want 4 more? Is that what you mean? I mean, in general, you can see them as classes. Yes. I mean, I think there will be 2 or 3 more in PoE 2, but you haven't gotten to... What act are you in, by the way? Because you haven't told me that. Let me just finish the video also.
So why aren't there more MMO content creators? It's because it's an extremely niche section of the gaming world with a low audience cap, which not that many people have a deep passion about making content for. And critical opinions the creators need to have often put those creators at extreme risk of backlash from dangerously enfranchised fans. General MMO channels can cover more games and rely more on the personality of the content creator at the cost of missing the finer details of the games themselves. But specialized channels risk linking their channel's success and the creator's success to that chosen game's lifespan. It takes an extreme amount of time to play any single game to the point where making content on it is viable to the end game players, and when you do make the content, you know it's got a predestined shelf life. So you're encouraged to make easier, more vapid content because it simply makes more sense considering time invested versus views gained, when you know the videos go obsolete so quickly. But that easy content is at odds with the design nature of MMOs to change the gameplay experience from patch to patch, from opening to ending, meaning you now need to make the choice between artistically fulfilling deep content destined to die or cheap, easy content destined to become useless. And you'll be doing all this while playing a very deep, demanding exciting, time-intensive game in a draining, analytical way, taking notes as you do, and then trying to make your experience entertaining when the majority of your experience was probably quite repetitive. So what makes a good review? Well, it depends. Do you want a general overview with a detached, objective look at the opening of the game and then the mid-game? Or do you want a long-time specialist to look at the end game? Because both reviews are completely valid and both are extremely different. The takeaway seems to be that we as content creators and you as audience members need to have realistic expectations of the other, who the specific video is aimed at, and to be honest about the level of depth you can expect from our content, given the balance we need to find between quality and quantity. If you don't put out quality videos, people won't like your channel. And if you don't put out quantity, you won't make a living on YouTube. If you've watched this whole video and you're still thinking that you want to make MMORPG content, then good. We want you to. This video wasn't designed to scare you away, it was designed to welcome you into a strange career with a bit of look at the truth behind what you're actually going to experience. If you're a passionate MMORPG player, make MMORPG content. We need you. I need you. There's only so many crap games left until I have to play World of Warcraft.
Jesus Christ. Dude, I think the moment Josh makes a video on World of Warcraft, like, that will be probably his most popular video ever, because it's World of Warcraft and it's Josh. So it will blow the fuck up. If that won't hit 10 million in like a year, I will eat a broom. That was all in 2.5 speed, right? No, 2.5 is not possible. That was in 1.25 speed. But obviously we stopped. I talked. I tried to add my things, obviously, and I don't want to be a complete reactionary. I actually want to react to one more video, but I don't know, probably not. I don't know. If I find any more videos, I will happily watch them live. Because I think it's very, I don't know if it's even interesting to react to this stuff, but I find these types of videos so interesting and so fun. And I usually have my two things to say, so why not do it live, I think? Because I find making a video on it and then re-uploading it feels so weird. That feels like copying. That feels like I'm stealing content. Live, I at least made it live, right? There's a little bit of a thing with live and reacting to stuff. It's not perfect, but, you know, it does get the views, apparently. I don't know.